two modes to your brain that you need to know about. There's autopilot. We've all experienced that. You know, you drive to work and get there and you're like, oh, who drove the car? Oh my God. Like, I don't even remember driving the car here. Yeah. Well, you did, Lewis. You drove the car. But the thing is that you were in the mode of your brain that's called autopilot. Well, what is autopilot? Autopilot is the interior part of your brain. You'll hear neuroscientists and psychologists talk about the basal ganglia. Very important thing to understand is that there's a part of your brain that its entire job is basically to execute your habits. Habits, big fancy word, means something very simple. Behaviors that you repeat without even thinking about it. When you pull your pants on in the morning, I guarantee you either put your left or your right leg in first. And you have to stop and think about which one it is, don't you? But not when you're putting your pants on.
Right, exactly.
Because that behavior is what researchers call a habit loop. It gets encoded as a closed loop system right here. Now, the problem for most of us is that half of the day we're on autopilot. And that's not me making a guess. That's what researchers that study habits and study psychology say. That half of your day, you're basically kind of checked out and you're on autopilot. And when you're checked out and you're on autopilot, any behavior pattern that you repeat can take over. And guess what are behavior patterns that we repeat? Thinking patterns. So self-doubt, worry, procrastination, overthinking, analysis paralysis, fear. Those are all thinking patterns that are habits. One of the most important things that I want people to understand is that you're actually not a worrier. You have a habit of worrying. Big difference. You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. And when you understand that any behavior pattern, whether it is a thinking pattern like you doubt yourself all the time, or you get trapped upstairs noodling everything and you can never get started, or whether it's a behavior pattern like you drink too much, or you snap at your kids, or you micromanage your team. Every one of those behavior patterns and thinking patterns can actually be interrupted and replaced using science. Now, let's talk about the second part of the brain. Drive. That's this puppy right here. This is what you want. This is your prefrontal cortex. Drive is the mode where you're in charge of your thoughts, okay? It's where you are fully awake, you are present, and you are driving your thoughts and actions. When you're doing that, your prefrontal cortex is active. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that you need in order to learn new behavior, in order to do something difficult, in order to do something uncertain, in order to do strategic thinking. So I'm going to give you an example. So I'm a righty. If I were to try to write with my left hand, Lewis is going to torture me and tie my hand behind my back and make me do this. I could do it. It would look like I was writing with my foot. And if Lewis came up to me and said, hey, Mel, you want some bulletproof coffee? I'd be like, Lewis, I'm trying to concentrate. I can't do this. My prefrontal cortex would be el fuego because it is firing on all cylinders to communicate to my hand new behavior. So the thing that's cool about that is that you can use a simple trick. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, the moment you've got one of those moments where you know that you need to, this is that moment that Lewis talks to you about where you got to step outside of your comfort zone and you've got to lean into your passion and you've got to really take some risks and you got to feel the fear and you got to do it anyway. That's the moment where you just woke up and now you got a decision to make. Are you going to drift back into the habits or are you going to awaken your prefrontal cortex and drive forward and focus and do something new? And so the work that I've been doing and speaking about is all about the 5-second rule, which is a trick that I invented by mistake that helps you manually switch, no joke, your brain. It turns off and interrupts the part of the brain that is where all your habits and your behavior patterns are encoded, and it awakens your prefrontal cortex, which in 5 seconds flat allows your brain to help you change. So today's training is all about the anxiety, the overwhelm, the fear that so many of you feel based on the belief that you have run out of time, that you don't have enough time, that the time for X, Y, or Z to go and be a veterinarian, to go to medical school, to launch that business, to leave your wife or husband that you can't stand anymore, to do whatever it is that you've always thought about doing or you've been thinking about doing, that you've somehow convinced yourself that you don't have enough time. And I'm here to tell you that is complete and utter BS. You are in control of the one thing that everybody cares about, that everybody complains about, and everybody's trying to steal from you, and that is your time. And in fact, if you're worried about not having enough time, let me tell you something that I know about you. You're not using your time effectively. You're not being deliberate about how you're spending your time. And the problem isn't time and whether or not you have enough of it. The problem is you're not being completely selfish, deliberate, and just in control of how you're spending it. You're letting other people distract you. You're letting your negative beliefs distract you. And so that's got to stop today. Because here's the truth. Whether you're 70 or you're 77, you have plenty of time to start working toward the things that you care about. And what's so interesting is I'm wearing a shirt right now. Don't you love this shirt? I love this shirt. It's made by a woman named Renee. What's her last name? Bazzetti, here in Seattle. And I love her story. Mandy and I were just over. She hand makes these shirts, and I had no idea what her backstory was. She left her husband at the age of what, 46?
44, yeah.
At the age of 44 with two kids.
Court for 2 years.
She left her husband at the age of 44, had 2 kids. She was in court for 2 years. She literally went from being in her home overnight to literally moving in the middle of the night to her own apartment. And she had no idea what she was going to do. And she just told us, she said, at the age of 46, her attorneys told her only 1% of women actually find the gumption to leave a situation like the one that she was in. And most women don't leave because they don't know what they're going to do. They figure, oh my God, I'm so old. I don't have time to figure this out. What am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. Like the same kind of anxiety. Well, she left, and she told us that the best thing that ever happened to her is that her husband kicked her rear end in divorce court. And she literally left that proceeding with just about nothing. And so she was forced to figure out, what am I going to do with the rest of the time that I have? I'm 46 years old, and there's plenty of women out there and men out there that think, oh my God, at the age of 46, I don't have enough time left. Are you kidding me? I'm 50. I'm just getting started. As far as I'm concerned, I've got the rest of my life to figure out what I want to do and to work towards what I want to do. And so she basically, for 3 years, started working on making a shirt. It was the thing that she was interested in. And so this is the most important thing I need you to understand. Telling yourself you don't have time, it's a habit. Telling yourself you don't have time is an excuse. If you're telling yourself that the time has passed for you to go become a veterinarian, that's somebody's comment that I saw today on Instagram. If you're telling yourself that the time has passed for you to build a business, that the time has passed for you to do whatever it is, here's what I know about you. You're just afraid. You're just afraid of taking the step. And it's a lot easier to use the excuse that you don't have time, because if you tell yourself you don't have time, guess what? You're not going to find the time, and you're not going to force yourself to make the time to make working on that dream a priority. You know, one of the things that I wear right now is my little My Intent bracelet, this little thing, and my word for the year is deliberate. And when it comes to time, you have to be deliberate because you have plenty of time. It's a matter of whether or not you're being deliberate about how you're using it. And that's the thing that you have to stop. You got to stop giving your time away. You got to stop wasting your time with people you don't care about. You got to stop wasting time listening to the excuses from the past. They don't apply. You can make anything happen if you just start putting in the work. And that's going to require you to get deliberate about making the time to do the work. And you can do the work that you need to do to change your life 10 minutes a day. That's it. Start working 10 minutes a day. Start taking an online course. Start investigating going back to school. Start following people that inspire you around launching your own business. You have time. So stop with the habit of telling yourself you don't. Do we have any questions, Mandy?
Yeah, we do. From Diane on Facebook. It's a good one.
Diane on Facebook.
She wants to go to school to learn sign language to be an interpreter.
Great.
Her daughter's a junior in high school, and she wants to know if she should wait until her daughter graduates.
No. Okay, so she wants to know if she should wait until her daughter graduates to go back to school. Absolutely not. Let me tell you something, parents. The only way your kids are going to learn how to pursue their dreams and their goals is if you model it. Do you want your daughter to be the kind of adult female, to be a woman that puts everybody else's needs ahead of her? Do you want your daughter to start to think the same lies that we were all trained to believe, that there is a time to do certain thing and a right time? The only right time is now. The only right time to really push yourself to make a change is right now. And so what your daughter is going to learn when she sees you going back to school and she sees you managing your time so that you're focused on priorities that matter to you is she's going to be learning the skill of doing it for herself. It's one of the best things that you could possibly do. My mother did this when I was in 9th grade. She opened up a retail store when I was in 9th grade. She opened up a kitchen retail store, and it was the coolest thing to see my mom pursuing something that was important to her. It was the coolest thing to see my mom launch her own business and to realize, wow, I want to be that kind of person. And I can be a great mom, and I can also have a business. And the way your kids learn that kind of thing is they watch you do it.
Why does the high five habit even work? Were you first of all doing it when you were in a bad place and you were high-fiving yourself?
Yeah, so this is what happened.
Okay.
So I invented the 5-second rule, for example. Right. When my husband's restaurant business was going under, I was unemployed. We were nearly $1 million in debt, and we were about to lose everything. 3 kids under the age of 10, liens on the house, no money in the bank. Just deeply, deeply terrifying moment. I couldn't get out of bed without hitting the snooze button 4 or 5 times and the kids missing the bus. I literally became a person I did not recognize, drinking myself into the ground, screaming at my husband all the time, constantly on edge, panic-stricken, the whole thing. And I invented the 5-second rule out of dumb luck as a trick to help me get out of bed. The idea being if I launched myself out of bed, maybe I wouldn't be in bed when the anxiety hit. That I could move fast enough to beat the depression, the overwhelm, the fear, and the anxiety. And it worked. And that's spread around the world. It's changing millions of people's lives. It's super cool. And the high five habit was born out of a very similar experience. So the book is not a pandemic book, but I developed the high five habit, or stumbled upon it rather, on a really low morning. That's it. The kids are home. College is imploded. We're in full-blown pandemic mode. My daytime talk show's canceled, so I've been fired from my dream job. I've had a book contract canceled because I haven't turned in the book on time. I start having speeches canceled, so now I'm getting triggered, feeling the financial free fall that we had experienced a decade ago. And I was just overwhelmed. My kids are in breakdown. I'm in breakdown. The world is in breakdown. And I get up one morning and I walk into my bathroom and I'm standing there in front of the sink in my underwear. And I'm brushing my teeth and just sort of on autopilot, not really thinking about anything. And I catch my reflection in the mirror. And I know every woman in particular will relate to this moment. And I know every dude does too. But I see myself and I think, God, you look like hell.
Yes, I think everyone can relate to that.
And then I start picking myself apart because a negative thought is a lot like lint. Once it gathers more and more and more. And so I literally start going, your boobs one size bigger than the other, your gray hair's coming in, your lines on your neck, the bags on your, and then of course I'm like, oh my gosh, I got up late and I've got a Zoom call in 8 minutes and I haven't walked the dog yet. And I just felt beaten down. And I was doing it to myself. My thoughts were just killing me. And I had nothing to say. And I don't know what the hell came over me. It is the cheesiest thing in the world. But there I am in my underwear without a bra on or even a cup of coffee. And I find myself raising my hand and high-fiving myself in the mirror. And that very first high five, it's not like it changed my life.
Right.
But what happened is something flipped in me. I went from this nasty, negative, just damaging self-talk to silence and to feeling okay, I know it's hard. I got this. Come on, get back out there. And my shoulders went back and I went off on my day. And here's when I knew something was up, because the next morning I woke up and I got out of bed, and I always make my bed right after I get up. And I immediately thought about seeing myself in the mirror. Now, I have probably for the last 45 years,
either criticized myself or ignored myself in the mirror. I have never looked forward to seeing myself in the mirror. It's sort of like that feeling, like if you're going to go meet a friend for a cup of coffee and you're walking up to the cafe and you've got this feeling of excitement that you're about to see somebody that you like. That's how I felt. And so I walk into the bathroom and there's my reflection. And so I had this moment with myself on the second morning where I'm standing there with myself. I'm not criticizing myself. I'm just being with myself. And then I start thinking about the day ahead and how I want to show up. And I raise my hand again. Now, here's the crazy thing when you try it, because I'm on a mission to make everybody on the planet try this thing.
You have a challenge actually going on.
Yes,
today, don't you?
It's called the High Five Challenge. We're getting 5 million people to wake up 5 mornings in a row and start their day with a high five in the mirror, setting an intention, journaling on it, using this simple practice to change the neural pathways in your mind and reset the default programming you have about yourself. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So here's what's crazy about it. So first of all, when you stand there and you do it, so here's how you do it. You walk into the bathroom, pair it with brushing your teeth, because hopefully everybody's doing that in the morning.
Well, let's hope.
Yes,
right?
and we're going to habit stack.
Yeah.
So you're going to either do it before the brushing of the teeth or after the brushing of the teeth. And you're going to just take a moment and you're going to be with yourself. That's it. You're just going to look at yourself in the eyes in the mirror. I want you to think about the day ahead. I want you to think about what game you're playing in life. And that's it. Who are you going to be today? How do you want to show up? And then you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. Now, here's the first thing you're going to notice. First of all, you're going to notice whether or not you quickly do it and are like, why haven't I been doing this before? Or you're going to notice that you're super resistant to it. And this is what most people feel.
That's what I tried it because, I've been reading your book and I felt weird and strange.
Yeah. Well, here's why. You've never been taught to celebrate yourself. If you're a woman, you've been told that you're a bitch or you're selfish or you are conceited if you do it. To be a good girl, a good friend, a good wife, a good this, a good partner, you're supposed to support everybody else.
Yeah.
You have been actually taught to withhold it from yourself, to give it to yourself last. And so, yeah, it is uncomfortable for most of us. There's an even sadder reason why. And the sadder reason why is you have a story about your past that you're not worthy of it. You have evidence in your mind that you are a piece of shit, or that you are worthless, or that you're a bad person, or that you're unlovable. You look at all the things that you think that you've done wrong, and you think it makes you unworthy of that kind of support and celebration. That's why you look outside yourself for it, for validation in relationships, from likes, from the amount of money you have, the kind of car that you drive. You have to start to figure out how to build the self-worth and the self-love and the self-validation within yourself. The other reason why it is very difficult for people to do this is because you have been trained to believe that if you're not achieving or doing something worthy of celebration, you don't deserve it. And I'm here to say, bullshit. If you wake up in the morning and you can stand in front of that mirror and you're still breathing, you deserve and need encouragement and support. You have survived so much stuff, and here you are still standing up, trying a little harder. Are you kidding me?
What's interesting is also, and you talks about this a bit in your book, the amount of evidence for it, right? So talk about what is it called neurobics?
Yeah, isn't that a weird word? Yeah, I didn't make that up.
I was thinking really aerobics, neurobics, and about how it's true when you do that with children. There's a whole thing about how children respond to high-fiving.
Well, first of all, think about what's going viral right now. We're taping this at the beginning of the school year, at least here in the United States. You see all these teachers holding up mirrors, I'm this, affirmations.
That's true.
You see all these teachers high-fiving individual handshakes.
Yep.
Why do we love that?
It's so true. Because it makes people feel good and positive.
And it makes you realize each one of those kids feels seen.
Mm-hmm. That's why they had the mirror so they can see themselves.
Correct.
I saw that. That was such a great piece.
Yeah. And so here's the other thing I want to say. It is actually, it'll feel weird, but you won't think this is weird.
Right.
And here's why. So you've spent your entire life high-fiving other people.
Right.
When you give or receive a high five, what does that physical gesture communicate to somebody?
That they achieved, that they did well, that that they are good, they're great, they're whatever it is, all the positive.
I believe in you. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got this. I got your back. I celebrate you.
Support.
Keep going. It's support. And love and so all of it.
Yeah.
So you've been doing that for everybody else your whole life. and you've done it with this motion. So it's already programmed in your subconscious mind with this motion. So when you go and stand in front of the mirror and your default is to criticize yourself, the second you raise your hand for a high five, the subconscious part of your brain takes over and it marries that programming. I believe in you. I love you. I celebrate you. You got this with your own reflection. It changes how you see yourself.
And I love how that, again, about the kids thing, because I have kids.
Yeah.
You have kids.
First day of school was yesterday.
Right.
So,
For mine was a couple weeks ago. But the fact is, like, I like to use that now. I do that with my kids all the time. But now I'm going to be much more conscientious of doing it even more.
Yeah.
Versus just good job. Because
so let me explain the study.
Yeah.
So they did this study where, because of course what happened is I started doing this in my own life. I'm feeling crazy benefits. I post one photo on my story. Within an hour or two, 100 or so people have tagged me and they're doing it. And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. That's when I dig into the research. That's when I go, whether this is a thing or not a thing, I want to understand why this is working for me, because you can't raise your hand and think I suck.
Right.
Because your brain won't allow it because of the programming associated with the physical movement.
So that's the neurobics part of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is with this study, they took kids and they wanted to know what's the best way to motivate kids through a very challenging problem, or like that they have to work through. And so the first group of kids get the classic fixed mindset verbal praise. Hey, you're really smart. You're really talented. You're really good looking, like a fixed trait. That's not very motivating. We know that for decades of research. The second group get verbal praise in the form of a growth mindset, which we know is more motivating than traits. You're praising the effort. You talk about it all the time on the show. Praising, oh, great job, keep going, love your perseverance, really hard work. You're praising something the kids can control, which is how much effort they put in, more motivating than just saying you're smart. The third group gets a simple high five from the researcher. No words at all. Just walk up, high five, walk away. That group outperforms the other ones. I don't even know if it was 10-fold, 20-fold, it doesn't even matter. It was so profound that the researchers, when they published the study in an academic journal, called it the motivating power of a high five. Why? The reason why a simple high five is way more powerful than any kind of verbal praise or mantra that you could have is because a high five fulfills your most foundational emotional needs. When you receive a high five, you feel seen. And I'm going to tell you something about it. Like, have you ever given a crappy high five where you like kind of miss the hand? What do? You've got to do it again.
You got to do it again.
Because it creates, you have to be intentional about it. There's an intention behind it. So you do feel seen when you get one. You also feel heard. If you get a high five from somebody when you're going through a challenging time and they high five you to try to lift your spirit up, you feel like somebody gets that you're down. The kids knew, these researchers knew that this was hard.
You feel understood.
Yes. And then you feel celebrated for the unique you that you are. And I'm here to tell you, you can build that relationship with yourself. Those researchers were sharing in the struggle with those kids and were cheering them on. And I'm telling you, practicing the high five habit and the tools in this book, you can absolutely build that partnership with yourself.
So the high five is for personal self-assuredness or confidence. The hand to the heart is more for anxiety.
Yeah,
right?
it's for basically calming down your nervous system.
Right.
Exactly.
And then, so how about with the negative thoughts and all that? What is there like, can you use the high five for the negative or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Correct. So that's a way to flip yourself from a negative mindset to a high five attitude.
Okay. So it's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for that.
Yeah. And I'm not thinking about that.
And I'm not thinking about that. And that you said works too because it's changing all that.
Absolutely.
Then how about the mantras? I wanted to ask you about this because people always talk about have a mantra, whatever that you say. For me, it never seems to do a damn thing. And I think a lot of people would agree. But you talk about basically creating like a meaningful mantra that actually works.
Right.
So how do you do that? What's the difference?
Oh, there's a big difference. So kind of if you hate your body, I have a daughter that really struggles with how she looks right now.
How old is she?
22.
22.
She's the one with the text in the book who sent me the text seriously while I was writing the book that said, why do I always Why am I always the ugliest one at the bar?
I saw that text. It was very, very hard to read. It broke my heart when I saw that.
Yeah.
As a mom, especially, it's tough to see that.
And the whole point, and I have her permission to talk about it, and I had her permission to write about it. You know, the text shows that when you get something like that from somebody that you love, it's interesting because that text reveals how she sees the world, not how we see her in the world.
Right.
And it's really important to understand that your experience in life is 1000% determined by what filter you're viewing the world through. And yes, you may have all kinds of evidence that you're overweight right now, or you've let your health go, or that you've done some things that you regret. But how does beating yourself up over it help you change those things? It doesn't.
Right.
In fact, based on the research, we know that being hard on yourself makes it even less likely you're going to change. It's very demotivating. That the most empowering force on the planet is feeling supported and encouraged. And most people who are in a place where they have something that they don't like about their life or their bank account or their pant size or themselves, they spend all day harping on themselves about it instead of flipping it into encouraging and focusing on what they want. So in terms of meaningful mantras, there is no way in hell my daughter, in where she is in her life, is going to stand in front of a mirror and go, I love my body. Should she? Of course she should. Is she the ugliest person in the bar? Are you kidding me? I've tried everything. I follow the experts in this area. I don't ever talk about her body. I talk about her personality, her loyalty, what an incredible friend and daughter and human, her sense of humor, her work, like all of it. She is so focused on how miserable she feels about it that her brain in real time filters the world in a way to go, oh, see, that person's skinnier than me. Boom, more evidence. Completely ignoring that all the other people that she'd actually not be bigger than. Your brain will literally reorganize itself in real time in order to confirm what you believe and what you keep telling yourself. And so back to the mantras, if you don't believe it, your mind rejects it. Seriously. And so you have to start with something that I call meaningful. I probably should have called it pathetic mantras in order to make it stick, because it's not something like, let's say that you think you're a bad person. Okay. You got cheating in your past, or maybe you were abused. You've got childhood trauma. You got all kinds of evidence from your past that makes you stand in front of the mirror and see somebody that does not deserve a high five because you're a damaged person that screws everything up. Okay. What happens when you start to tell yourself that? Maybe somebody told you that when you were growing up. You've thought it so often, you now think it all the time. Just because you've thought it for a long time doesn't mean it has to stay as the default in your mind. That's the other thing that people don't realize, is that at any moment in time, you can get intentional about resetting the default shit that you think in your mind. Just because you're used to it doesn't mean you have to keep thinking it. So if you get in front of that mirror, let me just keep going with this story. So if you have this opinion that you're damaged goods and everything that you do screws up and you're a bad person, let's take a really innocuous example. Let's say that you...
or not good enough. I think it's more about being not good enough.
Oh, I think people's stories, I think that's the thing people say in public. I think that's a nice way to say, I think I'm a piece of shit. I think I'm worthless. I think I'm not good enough sounds okay in polite conversation.
You don't think that social media, though, has played such a screw up in people's minds because they're comparing constantly to other people?
Yeah, but look, social media is a tool.
Exactly.
Too many people have allowed themselves to become the tool. And if you have an issue or a problem with comparison, stop being an asshole about social media to yourself. Go through your feed and get rid of every single account that triggers you. And fill your account with things that actually make you feel good about yourself, that are about where you're going instead of where you're not and where you're lacking. By doing that and curating your own feed to make you feel like shit, you are tripling down on the programming in your brain. and making your brain believe, oh, it's important that I feel bad. It's important I see people skinnier than me. It's important that I see people that have more money than me. It's important that I see all these fake relationships online. It's important that I sit here in bed and before I even set my intention or do my morning routine, I spend 30 minutes self-loathing as I look at people's vacations and I make myself wrong about where I'm not. What the fuck are you doing? Seriously, get rid of those accounts on your feed. If you're unhappy, do something about it. Mm-hmm. And the fastest way to use social media for good is delete all the crap that makes you feel like horrible about yourself and start putting in things that reinforce the message that you are in control of your life. You can change your life. You can achieve your goals. You can be a happier person. You can heal your trauma. Absolutely. That is 1,000% in your control. You shouldn't be a robot about it. And so, but nobody does. We all just kind of mindlessly consume it because that's how it's designed. But it can be an incredibly powerful tool for good if you're intentional about how you use it.
Right. The curation is actually a very good idea, but people don't take that extra step to do that.
You have to. Like unfollow Friday. Unfollow Friday. Every Friday, go through your feed and unfollow people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and if you're like, oh, but my Uncle Joe is going to get annoyed if I'm... Mute him. Who gives a shit what your Uncle Joe thinks? Honest to God. Like, your social media is for you. Stop thinking about what you're broadcasting on social media and start thinking about what you're allowing into your mind.
That's a great one.
Look at the last 5 people you texted. Are those people helping you get where you want to go?
Are you asking me or just...
I'm just saying, there's a test you can do. Look at the last 5 people you texted. Look at the last 5 accounts you liked. Oh, Kim Kardashian, thanks a lot. Like, she's an amazing businesswoman. Amazing businesswoman. Is she actually helping you get where you want to go?
Absolutely. I don't follow her, but I would imagine not. Yes.
Well, I don't know. For some people, maybe. For some people, not. Like, get serious about your life. Mm-hmm. Like, at some point, you're going to die. At some point, this whole thing's over. And you're mindlessly walking through this and setting up your whole life to make you feel like shit. And you don't have to. That's the reason, by the way, why you can't stand in front of a mirror and high-five yourself. Because your whole life has been organized around making you feel bad about yourself. And I'm here to tell you, you can turn this around. You can change your social media feeds. That's number 1. Number 2, you can force yourself to try this stupid thing. Try it for 5 days. Mm-hmm. Do the high five challenge. Just go to highfivechallenge.com. You can sign up for free. It's super easy. High five yourself in the mirror for 5 days in a row and see what happens. We have a woman who had body dysmorphia for 20 years write to us and say she hasn't looked at herself in 20 years. 5 days of doing this, she can now look at herself and grin because she doesn't see her body anymore. She sees the human being inside.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a woman that wrote to us in a domestic violence shelter saying that, she had just escaped this abusive relationship. She's lost everything. She has so much trauma. But this high five thing has made her realize she still has herself.
Wow.
She can have her own back. And it begins every single morning rebuilding that partnership with yourself. There's only one person that you spend your whole life with.
That's right.
And it's high time you start working on improving the relationship that you have with yourself because it is the foundation of every relationship that you have. If you feel like shit about yourself, you will allow people into your life who treat you like shit. If you start to empower, encourage, and support yourself, you will build up your self-esteem and worthiness so that you are strong enough to attract and be around the people that you deserve and that deserve you. And I'm not saying that anybody deserves abuse. That's not what I'm saying at all. So do not take that out of context. I'm not saying to you, but
Right.
What I'm saying is you're not responsible for any of the bad shit that's happened to you. You survived it. You are responsible for what happens next. And that's where building a relationship with yourself matters. People don't have boundaries because they can't even look themselves in the eye. So how the fuck are you going to look somebody else in the eye?
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. And that's, again, very tangible stuff.
What I'm about to tell you is the single most powerful thing I have ever discovered in my entire life. And my passion about this topic is not coming from the fact that I want you to buy the book. Don't buy the book. You don't need to. I put all the content out for free anyway. My passion comes from the fact that
I know that this habit will crack you open in a way that you need, and it will reintroduce you to the most important force on the planet, and that is belief and support and validation of yourself. Life is what turned you into a cynic. You were not born that way. And so what I'm here to tell you, and I'm standing not only on my own experience, but on the experience now of hundreds of thousands of people and the validation of the world's leading scientists. I know that this sounds dumb. I know that this is cheesy. And I am telling you, if you take this on, just do it 5 days in a row, something profound is going to happen. What you're going to realize at the deepest level is there is a fucking human being that stands in that mirror with you every single morning, and you have been criticizing and ignoring them. And the moment that you wake up and you realize that every single morning there's a human being that looks at you, that needs you, that wants you to pay attention, that needs your support and love, and you have abandoned them, you've criticized them, you've beaten them down. And the second that you change your relationship with the person that stares back at you in the mirror, your whole life changes, because your relationship with yourself is the foundation of everything. And so let me tell you, though, the story of how I discovered this, because when I start to unpack the layers and layers and layers of what is happening, this is foundational. It's foundational to your experience, to your fulfillment, to your happiness, to your confidence, to all of it. And so I'm here to tell you, if cynicism works for you, keep doing it. Don't even try this. Stop listening to us right now. But if you want something more, if you long to feel happier, if you wish you were content, if you wish you could stop focusing on the things that are going wrong, if you wish you could forgive yourself for stuff the way that you can forgive everybody else, if you wish you weren't so bloody hard on yourself, you better sit up and pay attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this shit is real. So, it was April of 2020. I woke up. You don't even need to know the backstory. And I just felt overwhelmed by my life. I felt defeated. I felt like the list of stuff that was on my shoulders, between the business I was running, the employees that I have, the people I take care of, the kids that my husband and I have that were in breakdown, just everything was weighing on me. And I know we all know that feeling. You wake up, you stare at the ceiling, you feel like the fear and the overwhelm is a gravity blanket pinning you to the bed. I use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I get out of bed. I always make my bed. That morning, I made it so I wouldn't crawl back into it. I then start dragging myself to the bathroom. I'm standing in the bathroom in my underwear, brushing my teeth like every other morning. And all of a sudden, you guys, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror. And I think, oh my God, you look like hell. And the woman I saw standing in the mirror did. She looked exhausted. She looked tired. She looked stressed. I actually felt sad for her. And then out of habit, I started picking her apart. The dark circles under her eyes, the saggy neck, one boob is hanging lower than the other. And then, of course, once you start picking yourself apart, your thoughts only go more negative. So then I start thinking about the day ahead, and it wasn't optimistic. It was like, why did I get up so late? And I got 8 minutes before the Zoom call starts. And shit, there's a dog, and I haven't even walked the dog yet. I did not respond to those text messages. So now I'm doing the beatdown. Mm. And here's the interesting thing. If either one of you guys had walked into the bathroom that morning, I would have spun on a dime. I would have been like, Damien, Jake, oh, come on, guys. Yes, this sucks. Yeah, this is hard right now. Yeah, you don't deserve this. But you know what? If anybody can figure it out, you can. Come on, you got this. Get your ass back out there. Suck it up. I would have been able to lift you up. But standing there alone in my bathroom in my underwear, I actually couldn't think of anything to say. And honestly, I don't think I would have believed it, because it's not how I felt.
Yep.
And I don't know what came over me, because I'm kind of a cynical person. I'm not all woo-woo a lot of people are. I like science, but this sounds so dumb. I literally don't know what came over me. But standing there in my underwear, I didn't even have a bra on, for God's sakes. I literally raised my hand and I high-fived the woman in the mirror because she needed it. And look, it's not like lightning struck. You know, the heavens didn't part and there weren't like, oh, angel, like that. That's not what happened. I literally just felt like something small shift inside me. That's it. I just felt like a little, my shoulders dropped, my chin lift. I actually laughed because it's so dumb. I mean, come on. That's pathetic. I'm standing there. I got to high five myself. Jeez Louise, who does that? And I kind of laugh at the absurdity of the whole thing. And then I don't even say it. I kind of feel this sense of suck it up. Come on. It's not that bad. There's people with a lot. Just get out there. And I go on with my day. That is what happened.
Wow.
It was the second morning, you guys, that it really hit me. So let me tell you what happened on the second morning, because this is crazy. So I wake up, same problems, same overwhelm, same anxiety, same beat down. I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. I make the bed. I start walking toward the bathroom. And that's the moment I felt something I have never felt before. You know, when you are about to meet a friend and you're about to walk into a pub or a cafe and you're going to have a beer or you're going to have like a coffee with somebody you really like, what do you feel in that moment when you're about to walk into the pub?
Excitement.
Oh, you feel great.
Yeah.
Did you have that feeling?
I did. I actually felt excited to see.
About what?
To see the human being, Mel Robbins. You know,
what were you saying to yourself, Mel, when you put your hand on the glass?
You don't have to say anything. And I felt it before I even got to the bathroom. And this is the part that had me really wake up. I am going to be 53 years old this year. I don't ever remember experiencing the feeling of being excited to see the human being, Mel Robbins, in a mirror. I've been excited to see an outfit. I've been excited to see what a haircut looks like. But the human being, never.
Mel, I've never even looked at the human being in the mirror.
Correct.
I've looked at the haircut and I've looked at the outfit like you, and I've looked at the bags and do I need to shave this morning? I'm 42. I've never looked at the human being in the mirror. Never.
Correct.
When you think about it, who does? It's a means to an end looking in the mirror, right? Brushing your teeth. Are they clean? Great. Move on with the rest of my day.
Correct.
But Mel, will you tell us about this? Because I'm not being cynical, but I want to address the cynic that would still go, yeah, this is great, but it's not for me. You talk really quite powerfully in your book about neurobionics, which to me is the fascinating area that this links to.
Yeah.
Now, the way I understood it was that we learn faster when we do an unusual activity and we link it up with a positive thought. It goes in deeper. But would you explain in a bit more detail why this simple exercise you're describing can be so profoundly positive?
Yeah. So let me unpack this for you. And I will hit you between the eyes with the research, because at this point in the story, I'm not even in the bathroom yet. I'm realizing as I'm rounding the corner to step in the bathroom that I've spent probably 45 years either criticizing or ignoring myself. You know, you talk a lot about morning routines and everything we need to do to set yourself up for, making sure that you're a high performance person and you're happier. You stepped over the habit that everybody has, which is as you're standing there brushing your teeth, you drift into autopilot and you either beat the shit out of yourself or you ignore yourself. And then you start thinking about your day and everything that you're going to do for everybody else. And I'm here to tell you, there is a habit you need every morning based on crazy science that works for you because your brain and your nervous system is already programmed to have it work. And so I'm going to unpack this because it's important for you to understand where the cynicism comes from, because it's fucking sad. It's really sad. And so standing there that second morning, I'm having this weird ass experience where I'm like, what? Like there's me standing here, and then there's this human being in the mirror that I've never actually paid attention to. Behind the skin, behind the face, there is a soul, there is a person, there are emotions, and I have never actually even considered it. You want to go out in the world and do great things? You want to be a leader? There is something called emotional contagion. How you feel about yourself, the emotions you feel in the morning, they are contagious to the people you're trying to lead and inspire and change. And so it starts with you, especially if you think you're going to be some kind of leader. This is not cheeseball. This is science. And so as I stand there and I realize there is a human being I've ignored, there is a person who needs me that I have neglected. And I put the toothbrush down. And it's important for you, as you said, Jake, you need to do this right after you brush your teeth, because I want you to stack the habit with something you already do. You got to clean the crap out of your mouth. You don't want to go into the day and spread dragon breath all over the place. You got to clean the crap out of your brain so you don't spread that negative bullshit that's in your head that's been building for your entire lifetime on unsuspecting people around you and for yourself. And so I put the toothbrush down, and here's what you're going to notice. First things first, this will feel weird. It will. And the reason is explained by neuroscience. You have the opposite habit of high-fiving yourself. You either ignore or you criticize yourself or you judge yourself. That's what you do in the mirror every day. The high five is the exact opposite. So just like I write with my right hand right now, it's not weird at all because it's already programmed into my subconscious brain through neural pathway connection and through a lifetime of physical and mental activity fused together. If I lost my arm in a car accident today and I had to start writing with my left hand, of course it would feel weird. It's new. It's the opposite of what I've done. That's what it feels like to create new neural pathways. So weirdness is not a rejection of the idea. It's your own brain and how it works. That's number one. Number two, there are only two reactions that people have when they first do it. It's either wildly positive. So you might raise your hand and high five the mirror, and you will either burst into laughter at the absurdity and kind of how good it feels, or you'll start crying in a positive way because there's a deep emotional release for people when they realize I have been waiting for a very long time for you to wake the fuck up and actually see me and start supporting me. And the tears come from a sense of relief that you finally got it. You're finally returning home. You're finally coming back to who you fundamentally are. Because as a kid, you didn't lay in front of a mirror and criticize your face or your chubby thighs. You literally crawled up to it and kissed yourself. You used to spin in front of it. You used to dance when the music came on. Life taught you to criticize and ignore yourself. So this is a coming back to what is innately wired into your DNA, this need for support and celebration of self. And so it feels so good. And I'm going to explain the science behind that, because there's so much science here that we've even uncovered since finishing the book. It's bananas. So the second, though, and more likely response is the resistance. You will scoff at it. You will not do it. You'll roll your eyes. You'll tell yourself this is stupid. Let me tell you where the resistance comes from, because this is what's blocking you from being a high performer. It's blocking you from feeling fulfillment. It's blocking you from the happiness and joy you deserve. When you stand in the bathroom every morning, you drag your entire past into the bathroom with you. So if you've ever been abused or experienced trauma or been discriminated against or been abandoned or heartbroken or have had anything done to you that makes you feel like you're unworthy or unlovable or somehow you're damaged, that experience in your past is the evidence that you use to see a human being that is unworthy or unlovable or damaged because of those things. And so you see somebody who doesn't deserve celebration because of those things. Or if you're a human being, you have done shit you regret, whether it's cheating or it's drugs or it's lying or it's not living up to your potential or it's giving up on yourself or it's hurting other people or all the things that, boy, you would forgive Damien or Jake or Mel Robbins for, but you can't forgive yourself for it. You wear that shame and that regret like a yoke around your neck, and then you bring it into the bathroom every morning and you see that evidence. Like my husband did this for years. He followed his dream and went into the pizza restaurant, and they worked, he and his best friend, for 7 years at it, and then it shut down. It didn't return the investment that they had hoped and they had worked their tails off for. And when he left that business in 2014, you guys, he could not separate the failure of the business from how he saw himself. My husband, despite having the name Christopher Robbins, Winnie the Pooh, he would walk into that mirror for 6 years and see a failure. Did he feel like he deserved a high five? No, because he had evidence for why. And that's the resistance. There's another reason why, and this is big with high performers. It's because you believe that it's only when you're achieving something that's worthy of celebration that you deserve it. That until you have the money in the bank, until you have the number on the scale, until you're married to the right person or living in the right neighborhood or driving that Range Rover or whatever the fuck it is that you think that you need, or your hair's not kinky or this, that, or the other thing, that until you have that thing, you haven't done anything worthy of a high five. So why would you, on a random day, raise your hand in celebration, given the fact that you're not where you think you should be? That's what the resistance is. That's what your cynicism is. And it's become a habit. And here's the sad ass part about all this. If you think about the London Marathon, right? Even you cynical Brits, do you stand on the side with your arms crossed at mile 8 and go, hey, you fucking asshole. I'm not cheering for you. I saw how slow you were on the last split. When you cross the finish line, I'll give you a little polite clap. Fuck off. That's not what you do. You're like, you like high five them. In fact, if you've ever done a road race, it's the encouragement of strangers every step of the way.
Because we're British and we're brilliant at encouraging other people. We're absolutely horrendous at encouraging ourselves.
Everybody is. I'm like one of the most positive people that you will ever meet. And I did not know how to stand before myself until I discovered this and actually see the human being Mel Robbins, somebody who is trying, somebody who needs help, somebody who doesn't ask for help, somebody who's waiting for somebody to show up and acknowledge me and help me and read my mind. And the fact is, you have your best ally and hype squad, the person you spend your whole life with, staring back at you in the mirror. And you need to actually be that person, celebrating and high-fiving them every step of the way. And here's the science. This is why I want you to do it for 5 days. So first of all, yes, it's going to feel weird. Yes, you're going to resist it. But the moment you raise your hand and go to high-five yourself, you'll notice something. You can't high five yourself in the mirror and go, I hate my face. You can't do it. And your brain won't allow you to. And there's a reason why that can be explained by science. And this has to do with neurobics, what you were talking about, Damien. So I spent a couple hours with Dr. Daniel Amen, so the world's leading expert on the brain. When I told him about this 3 weeks ago, the guy geeked the hell out and explained to me all kinds of stuff that I didn't even realize. So he said, first of all, and this part we write about in the book based on neurobics, marrying a physical motion that's unexpected. So you never high five yourself, so it's unexpected. So that, snaps your prefrontal cortex into motion, like, what the heck's going on? With a positive new thought, it's the fastest way to create a new neural pathway. And so he basically said, so you guys, when you've high fived people in sport or in life, or you've received one, what does the gesture of a high five, without anybody saying anything, what does it actually communicate to you?
I see you. I acknowledge you.
Human connection.
Yeah. I believe in you. I got you. Let's do this. I celebrate you. If your attitude's in the tank, shake it off. I got you. It's all of that. It's celebration. It's encouragement. It's acknowledgement. And you've been doing it for other people your entire life. So all the positive programming is already in your basal ganglia. It's already married to the motion. So when you raise your hand and you do the physical gesture, your brain recognizes it, you guys, and it overrides any critic, any habit loop associated with bashing yourself, silences it, and it overrides it with the positive programming and marries it with your reflection. Do you realize I've been doing this for a year and I don't even have to high five myself anymore? Because when I walk in front of the mirror, the critic is gone.
Wow.
Gone. I see a human being who's trying. I see a human being that I love. And I just feel that way about and it's not arrogance at all. It's just support. That's it. And so I'm not even done with the science. So hold on a second. So Dr. Daniel Amen's like, hey, Mel, you want to know what else? You want to know what else? You want to know why it feels goofy and you kind of feel a little bit better when you do it? I'm like, yeah, I do. Tell me, Dr. Amen. He said, well, because every time that somebody else high fives you, your brain gives you dopamine, the feel good drug. When you do it to yourself, your brain recognizes the gesture and gives you a drip of dopamine, the feel good drug. He said, you want to know why else it works? I said, yeah, I do. He said, well, because your nervous system also knows what's going on and it jumps into the mode to help you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, gestures of hugging, you're raising your arms. Pat on the back, you raise your arm. A wave hello, you raise your arm. When you cross your finish line, you raise your arms. When you high five somebody, you raise your arm. All celebratory gestures, all gestures your nervous system recognizes as celebratory. You start to do it every single day in the mirror, along with the positive programming that's already in your brain associated with it, along with the celebratory energy that is in your nervous system that boosts your mood. Your body and your brain is already conditioned, wired by a lifetime of experience to have this override your circuitry and program a new set of neural pathways and an entirely new experience that you will feel when you see and think about yourself. It's crazy.
It's amazing. So, Mel, we get a lot of teachers and parents listening to this podcast. And I was particularly taken by the line that you said about that many of us haven't been taught the skill of being kind to ourselves, which is what the book is around. So what advice would you give to those of us that are parents or those of us that are teachers about how we can start to educate children around kindness?
Well, the most powerful way to teach anybody anything is to not tell them, but to show them. It starts with you. If you stand in front of the mirror and criticize yourself, your kids are hearing you. If you say, let me get in the back of the photo because you don't like your body, your kids are hearing you. If you screw up and you're like, bloody hell, why do I always suck? Your kids are hearing you. Their brains are like little sponges absorbing your patterns of behavior. And if your patterns of behavior include being hard on yourself, criticizing yourself, hating your body, your kids hear it. And so it starts with you. That's number one. The second thing that I would say is that there's a really interesting study that we write about in chapter 2 that was mind-blowing to me that every educator and parent needs to know. Now, you guys talk about the growth mindset all the time, right? You know the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. We all know that. So researchers wondered, what is the best way to motivate somebody to tap into that sense of resilience when you're facing a challenging moment, right? And so they did this study where they divided kids into 3 groups, and they tested 3 different forms of encouragement. One of them was based in the fixed mindset stuff. So they would walk up to students and verbally tell them you're really smart, praising a fixed trait about them, which, helps a little bit to feel encouraged, but doesn't really go the distance. The second group got the growth mindset praise, which is, of course, as we all know, praising something that you have control of, which is your effort. Oh, you're really perseverant. Oh, you're such a hard worker. I really admire that. The third group, the researchers didn't say a thing. They just gave the kids a high five. That's it. Just a simple, ordinary high five. No verbal praise at all. Those kids that got a high five during a challenging task, those kids outworked both of those groups, felt better about themselves, worked longer, pushed through more challenges. The researchers were so blown away that they changed the title of the study when it was published in Frontiers of Psychology, the research magazine, to the motivational power of a high five. And the question is, why? Why is it more motivating than verbal praise? Well, the reason why a high five is so motivating is because it fulfills a human being's most foundational emotional needs. When you high five somebody, whether it's yourself or your kid, when they're going through a challenging moment, first of all, you hear them because the high five says, I get it. This sucks. Like when my husband started doing this, he still felt like a failure. The high five doesn't say, you're awesome. The high five says, I get it. There have been some things that have really gone wrong. And guess what? I'm still here for you. I still believe in you. That's what it's doing. So when you high five a kid going through a challenge, you're acknowledging that this is hard, but you're also transferring the energy of your belief back to them. It's a shared celebration in your ability to face this moment. And I'm here to tell you, you can build that partnership with yourself. Like right now at the beginning of a school year, what goes viral? All of those moments where teachers create individual handshakes and high fives with kids going into the classroom. Why do we all love that? Well, because innately we know that each one of those kids feels seen and feels important. They don't feel ignored. They don't feel like they just, there's no reason for them to be there. They feel like they matter. That is the most important thing for your kids and for you to feel that they matter. And so I think that A, you should certainly be adopting the high five, and B, you should be modeling this. Because one of the other things that I write about in this book, and since you brought up kids, I'm going to read a text message from one of my daughters who is 21 years old, and she is a junior in college. And she is at a music conservatory studying, she's a singer-songwriter. She's at a music conservatory at the University of Southern California. And she texted me the other day, and I think our text exchange is illustrative of not only the power of this, but of the resistance that everybody feels. So she says, hey, Mom, are you getting excited about your new book? I can't wait to read it. By the way, I've been high-fiving myself in the mirror just to show you this is real. I can't, it's not focusing, but this is what I'm reading from. And I said, how's the high five working? And she said, well, I really don't know what to say when I do it. Because sometimes I still stand and look in the mirror, and the first thing I think is, you're not as pretty as the rest of the girls. And I said, well, you actually don't need to say anything. The high five will silence that thought and communicate everything that you need for you. And she said, but what if I didn't accomplish anything? Like I didn't work out today, or I didn't write a song like I said I would. Do I still high five myself after the shower? I said, absolutely. You got to keep showing up every day trying to do a little better. That alone makes you worthy of support and celebration. You see, we have the secret to life and happiness and motivation backwards. You think you need to accomplish something to be worthy of a high five. And she says, wait a minute. Are you saying the fact that I exist deserves a high five? Like it just makes me. And I said, yeah. When you high five yourself for just standing there in front of the mirror, you are demonstrating that you see you and all your potential, and you still support you and you believe in you, and that no matter what happens today, you've got your own back. And I said, well, what do you think about what I just wrote, Ken? And she said, I love it. It makes me feel great. And then I wrote this. Can you explain why it makes you feel great? Because maybe what you say is going to help me explain this to everybody else. And she said, well, what the high five shows you is that you don't actually know how much you're always doing. And I think that once you start high-fiving yourself every single morning, it almost allows you to be more present to everything you're doing. And it helps you recognize all those small victories. And when you compile those small victories, you can actually recognize all of your accomplishments, big and small, and eventually come to believe that not only are you worth it, but you can do anything.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That's moving. And by the way, thanks very much for sharing, the personal message between you and your daughter. So interesting the way it makes you reframe your thinking, though, isn't it? Because I've been sitting here thinking about high fives and when I high five people in my life, and I high five my kids exactly as you've just said, when something great happens. And then I thought about what you were saying about the NBA at the very beginning. When do they high five each other? At the start of the game. They haven't even won the game, but the first thing they're doing before they even tip off is high fiving each other. And I think there's a really strong message there for people to share that high five as your kids walk out the door in the morning, as your husband or wife wake up. And it also leads me to ask the question, my kids, I know I spend all my time lifting up my kids because they're my children and I want them to be resilient, and but I think it's probably been a long time since I high fived my wife. And I think there's it's worth us all thinking, isn't it? About, of course, it's good to be good to ourselves and good to the people that we feel need it, but we should also high five those that we think don't necessarily need it because perhaps they do.
I think that's true, but it does start with you. Like what I've begun to realize is that unless you truly love and support yourself, you won't allow somebody to deeply love you back or support you either. And so I feel that the more I have done this and the more I have felt supported and happy with who I am by accepting myself, by loving myself, every single morning, supporting myself and sending myself into the game of life, right? Just like those NBA players, sending myself into the game of life today, knowing that I have my own back. And then sending Chris into his day and sending the kids into the day. But at the end of the day, there's something else I write about. It's in chapter 2 or chapter 4 rather. So as I was writing this book, I only started writing this book, oh my gosh, would have been like May of 2020.
Wow.
Like I published the 5-second rule 5 years ago. I've been trying to write another book. I did not sit down and go, I need another 5. I need another 5. I got to write a book about a 5. Like, I'm dyslexic. Writing is very difficult for me. I've been struggling to figure out what to write about. And I think oftentimes ideas have a soul and a spirit and a timeline of their own. And they're not ready to come until they're ready to be born. And I think this idea of this high five habit. Yes. Yeah, I can tell that story. But hold on. I got to tell you this. Because you were, no apology necessary. I just want to follow up on what you were saying. Because yes, we need to support our spouses and our partners and our kids and our colleagues, and everybody needs to feel a sense of being lifted up. But the true power comes from knowing how to do it for yourself. Because it's in those moments when you're alone that how you see yourself and how you treat yourself matters. Like I get this text, and this is at the beginning of chapter 4, that would break anybody's heart. And we all have gotten a text like this from somebody we love. How do I not feel like the ugliest girl at the bar every time I go out? Now, it doesn't matter, Jake, how I see her. It doesn't matter if I high five her or I tell her that she's beautiful and smart and loyal and amazing human being. Because her experience of her life is not determined what I think of her. Yeah. It's determined by what she thinks of herself. And so the other reason why this high five habit is so important is because a mantra is not going to work. If you hate your body, or you think you're the ugliest, or you think you're a failure because your entrepreneurial venture failed, standing in front of a mirror and chanting, I'm awesome, it's not going to work because your brain doesn't believe it. You've been saying the opposite for decades. The power of the high five is you can still think I'm ugly and I'm a failure, but the second you go to raise the hand, you're demonstrating the opposite. And so it's really important that this is something that people take on for themselves, because only you can change how you see yourself. And it's only through action and acting like a different person that your brain will fall into line and start to see you as a different person.
And if you're too scared to do it because you have such a low opinion of yourself, you don't really want to get to know the person in the mirror, what about those people?
Do it anyway. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do it anyway. You desperately want to. You have been withholding it from yourself.
And on the total opposite, the people listening to this now thinking, that's great, well done, Mel, amazing. There are people out there that need it, but I don't. I'm confident enough. I'm happy enough. Life's good enough. What would you say to those?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Like I'm not here to say that
it's not beneficial to everyone, regardless of their own opinion. Like, so even if they,
of course it is
great, they should try anyway.
Even somebody who thinks they're great is bullshitting themselves. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, there are things you've never forgiven yourself for. There are pieces of you that you pick apart. There are parts of you that you hide and that you've shoved away and that you've never faced. And there's a level of contentment. There's a level of freedom that comes from truly accepting all of you. Everything that you're not, everything that you are. There's a level of happiness and joy that comes from truly being able to stand with yourself and understand that all those things that you did that you'd rather forget, you just did them while you were trying to survive, and it's time to fucking forgive yourself. It's time to move on. Like so many of us that are high achievers, by the way, are trying to prove through our actions that we're actually worthy. And all of the bolstering and the nice cars that we drive and the fat bank account. Look, I'm one of the most successful people you'll meet. I make a shitload of money. I am making a huge impact in the world. And all of that shit is outside of me. It created a life, guys, where I'm just busier and busier and busier. Because the second you get the Range Rover, what's the next car that's going to prove it? The second that you get $1 million, how are you going to get $10 million in the bank? The second that you're not racing around and you're not busy and the book's not on the bestseller list, that just means that you're no longer worthy. And so when you marry your worth or your lovability with what you are achieving or how you're performing or the shit that you have, you will always be trapped in this rat race of trying to get more. You'll also be consumed by jealousy and comparison. Because the second that somebody outranks you or does something more or does something that looks better, you will, at your core, feel like you're no longer lovable. That's that's at the heart of comparison.
Are you still doing all those things that left you in that difficult state when you started high-fiving yourself in the mirror?
Yeah.
Has this changed the way you act and helped you?
Well, you know what it does? It's a great question. So it is profoundly, fundamentally a total 180 in terms of the experience of being with myself. I actually don't even see a body. I don't criticize myself. I see somebody that I cheer for. Full stop. Just like your children, you would never, it doesn't matter how much weight they lose or gain, or it doesn't matter if they get fired from their, like you might be disappointed. You never stop loving them and you never stop cheering for them. It's that relationship that you create with yourself. I don't ever have a thought that is a teardown of my kid. Do they frustrate me? Yes. Do they make me angry? Yes. Do they disappoint me and annoy me? Yes. Do they piss me off? Yes. Do I ever stop loving them, supporting them, celebrating, cheering for them? Never. Never. I now have that relationship with myself. And does jealousy come up? You better believe it does. Do I find myself people please? Do I want you two to like me? Yes, I do. Am I going to lie to make that happen? No, I'm going to catch myself. Am I going to, like, all of those feelings come up? All of that, like throughout the day, it's impossible to go through your day and not have a negative thought and not have something happen that takes you down and not have something happen that has you aim it back at yourself. The difference is I so have my own back that I'm like, there I am. I'm jealous of these guys again. You know what? You guys have already launched a membership program. Fuck off. I'm jealous. You know, you're ahead of me. I'm comparing myself. And I catch myself because you can feel what it feels like to go low energy. And I go, there I go again. I'm just doing that thing. And then I flip it back into a high five attitude, which when it comes to jealousy and comparison, I go, oh, interesting. There it is again.
I actually want to have a membership program like these guys do. Pay attention to it. Stop blocking that desire and get to work, Mel. In this video, I am going to teach you not one, but 2 research-backed, science-supported tools you can use in order to get out of bed when the alarm rings, in order to beat the anxiety, dread, or depression that pins you down, because I'm sure you know that the second you get out of bed and you get moving and you start your day, you start to feel better. Oftentimes, laying in bed thinking about your problems is the worst place that you can be. And so the other reason why I wanted to make this video is because a little while ago, I posted this video of me online, a short little video demonstrating how I slither out of bed. And slithering out of bed is a brand new technique that a therapist that I'm working with taught me how to do, because the anxiety that I was feeling in my life was so overwhelming, I was having a hard time getting out of bed. So what are we going to cover in this video? Well, I'm going to cover 2 things that you can do to help you push through any anxiety, overwhelm, depression, whatever is like keeping you pinned in bed, okay? We're going to talk about the 5-second rule, which is what I would call a neck up tool. It's a tool that works on your mind and gives you control over your thinking so that you can take control and force yourself out of bed. And then I'm going to demonstrate what slithering out of bed looks like, which is what my therapist refers to as a neck down embodied tool that will help you on those days that you just can't force yourself to do it. Okay, so let me demonstrate both ways. So first we're going to talk about the 5-second rule. So, and I've got a bunch of your questions here because boy, oh boy, did you guys love that slithering video. So you're in bed. And for me, the bed is my favorite place to be, okay? I just love being in bed. And this isn't even my bed. This is a bed in a rental. You know, we're here at the beach for a little bit, and this is the bed in the rental. So it's not even my bed. I still love this bed. So you're sleeping, right? And so for me, I'm somebody who has struggled with anxiety, boy, for probably 4 decades. I think if you can be, I should probably just sit up and talk to you. I think if you should be, I mean, we only just met. I shouldn't be laying down as I'm sharing this with you. If you could come out of the womb having a panic attack, that was me. I was the kind of kid who was always nervous, had a worried stomach. I got sent home from every camp I went to because I was homesick. And I also experienced sexual abuse when I was 9 years old. In the middle of the night at a sleepover, an older kid climbed on top of me and I disassociated. I literally left my body. And the next morning, after it happened, I woke up and I just felt this overwhelming sense of dread. I knew something bad had happened. I was scared. I was overwhelmed by it. And I have to tell you, and I share this because it's such a common experience, there are very few mornings in the last 44 years since that initial morning where I have woken up and felt like okay and calm. Most mornings, I wake up and my body still has that stored sense of dread in it. Now, about 13 years ago, when my anxiety was really bad, as you can tell, it's not very bad right now, I invented something I call the 5-second rule. And the 5-second rule is very simple. The moment you hear that alarm ring and you feel the resistance or the hesitation pinning you down, you're just going to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? And then you're going to move. And so I started counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I had to launch myself out of bed every morning. And we call this a neck up approach because you're using your thinking and your mental power to create the strength and discipline to push through the resistance you feel to getting out of bed. Now, you're not going to want to do this. I get it, because you're cozy. You also wake up in the morning and your cortisol levels are their highest. If you have any kind of stored trauma in your body from abuse or from growing up in a chaotic household, you probably feel a sense of overwhelm every morning. That's normal. It's okay. You can still get out of bed. If you're not a morning person and you just hate getting up because you're cranky, you can still get out of bed, and the 5-second rule will help you. Here's how you do it. So the alarm goes off, right? I typically sleep like this. I burrow. The second you hear the alarm go off, you're going to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to throw the sheets off, put your feet on the ground, and start your day. Walk into the bathroom. Okay, that's what you're going to do. You're going to start moving. So you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That moves you from the subconscious part of your brain, where your habit of overthinking and hitting the snooze button and feeling heavy and laying in bed and thinking about all the things that are wrong in your life and dreading your day, which only makes you want to go, I don't want to get up. When you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you cut off those thinking loops. You activate your prefrontal cortex. It draws your focus to this part of your brain, and it gives you a moment where you can choose. The movement's critical. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put your feet on the floor. Start moving, and you will feel in control. Okay, you'll feel that resistance leave your body. And what's super cool about practicing the 5-second rule in the morning is that resistance that you feel going from a comfortable, safe, just cozy place in your bed, and learning how to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to choose a different, harder behavior, namely getting up. When you build the muscle of being able to push through the resistance and the dread, you can do it anywhere in your life. So if you're at a meeting at work and you feel nervous about speaking up, if you've been practicing the 5-second rule in the morning by pushing yourself out of bed and getting your day started, that little skill of courage in the morning is a skill you can now tap into to have courage at work, to speak up in meetings. You can use that same skill, pushing yourself out of bed, to push yourself off the couch and out the door to go for a walk. You can use that same skill in the morning of pushing yourself out of bed to push yourself out the door and force yourself to go hang out with friends, even though you feel like, you'd rather kind of stay in because you're feeling a little nervous about it. So that skill of recognizing those moments where you start to give in to resistance and doubt and overwhelm and anxiety, and practicing this little countdown that switches gears in your brain and then moving, that is a skill that will pay dividends far beyond helping you start your day and set your day up, which is so important because on those days that you actually get out of bed and you do a few simple habits in the morning to set yourself up for success, your whole day's better. Okay, so that's the 5-second rule. If you want to learn more about that, you should listen to the 5-second rule audiobook on Audible. But now let me teach you this second technique. The second technique is called slithering. So I was introduced to slithering out of bed very recently. I've only been practicing slithering out of bed for about 6 weeks. And what had happened in my life is I had had a bunch of major life changes go down. My husband and I had sold a family home of 26 years and we're moving to a very rural area, which is a huge change. I was making major changes in my business, which were very, very confronting. I had one of our kids have a bit of a mental breakdown, and as a parent, that was terrifying. And all these things happened literally within about a 5-day window, and I just felt knocked over by life. And, the other fact is that I think that for me personally, trying to navigate my business and my family and my mental health and so many changes through the pandemic and running a company, it's just beat the heck out of me. And after 2 years, I was sort of paper thin in terms of my emotional resilience. And so when our house sold and I freaked out, and our son started having panic attacks and I freaked out, and then all kinds of changes happened in my business and I freaked out in a 4-day window, I had an empty tank in terms of emotional resilience to be able to handle it. And I started experiencing these massive waves of anxiety. I hadn't experienced anything this terrifying in 23 years. That's the truth. And I would wake up every morning and I'd feel the anxiety start here, and it would just go all the way up my body and up my neck, and I would feel pinned down with terror. What have I done? Why did we sell the house? I'm not going to be happy. I'll never see my kids. How are we going to help our son? I'm really scared he's not going to be okay. What do I do if something happens to him? How am I going to handle it? Like, just the churn of angst and worry and concern and fear. And I was trying to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But the depression and the changes and the overwhelm were too much. I couldn't push through the heaviness that I felt. I felt like there was like a semi-truck parked on me every single morning, the weight of the world. And so my therapist said, you know, Mel, between all these changes and the anxiety it's provoking and the depression that you're feeling and the grief that you're feeling, closing such a big chapter by selling your family home, and the fact that you're in menopause, this is a tsunami that's going on in your body and your spirit and your emotions. And she said, the 5-second rule is wildly effective, but it's a neck up approach. You need a neck down body approach to this. And it had never occurred to me that there was a tool that would embody your strength. Instead of mustering through something, which is what the 5-second rule is so effective in doing, giving you that push, that moment of courage, that moment of motivation, there is a more embodied approach that you can take in these moments where you don't have the energy. And so you surrender to what's happening. Wait till you see this. It's really weird and it's really cool. And I believe that this is called somatic therapy. And there's lots of types of somatic therapy, from meditation to people shake and they tap. But this is an embodied approach to those mornings where the depression, the problems in your life, the sadness that you feel, the grief, the anxiety, it just is too heavy to bear. You are going to give into it. You're going to surrender to it. You're going to slither and fall out of bed. Because if you think about it, slithering to the ground is succumbing to the heaviness, isn't it? You're moving with the resistance. And then, and I'm going to demonstrate it in a minute. So you're going to move with the resistance. And then you're going to roll around on the floor in any kind of shape that feels to you like the resistance and heaviness in your body. So you might roll around in a ball, you might stretch out, you might writhe. And then as you're rolling around, at some point, you will feel ready to roll onto your hands and knees. And then get this. Then you're going to crawl. And you're going to start to crawl across the floor toward the bathroom. And then at some point, you're just going to be ready to stand up. It is the strangest, most amazing thing. And so I've been practicing this for about 6 weeks. And I'm now at the point where I don't really feel that anxiety in the morning anymore. The slithering has really worked. I don't dread the feeling because I know what to do if counting backwards isn't enough. So let me show you slithering, this sort of embodied approach to getting out of bed. So when you wake up and you feel that heaviness, what I would do is the first thing I would do is I would high five my heart, which I taught you in the high five habit. I put a hand here and a hand here, and I just say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And that hand right here and right here, it just really grounds me, and it tones the vagus nerve, which helps to flip from a state of fight or flight, dread, fleeing, into a calmer place. And then I think about the fact that I'm about to slither out of this bed. I don't want to slither out of this bed. I don't feel ready to slither out of this bed. This is not something that makes me happy. This is not something that I want to do. Slithering out of bed in a moment where I'm depressed or grieving or anxious because I know that I'll feel better once I get moving, slithering out of bed is what I need to do. And so there would be mornings that I would use the 5-second rule to initiate it. So you can count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're under your covers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then, you literally move in the direction of the floor. You just succumb to the resistance, and then you're going to move around. And, there would be mornings, honestly, in the past 6 weeks that I would get to this point and I'd want to crawl in a fetal position like this, and I'd lay there for a minute, and then the dog would come over and lick me, and then I'd move like this. And then the more that I did it, the less I would lay on the ground. I'd just kind of roll around and stretch, and then eventually when you're ready, whatever shape you want, because it's the resistance that you're feeling, you get on all fours and you just start to crawl. And you're staying low to the ground because you're giving into the heaviness, but you're not throwing in the towel. You're moving with it. You're moving through it. And at some point, as you're crawling, you will feel ready to just stand up. And it's almost like that sort of physical moving moves all that resistance out of you and through you in a way that is organic, it's doable. It feels like, in a weird way, it sort of acknowledges and honors the depression and the grief or anxiety or sadness or overwhelm that you're feeling. And it's super empowering because you don't have to feel energized or motivated. And there's a lot of mornings where I don't. And knowing that I can use this technique to embody and move with the heaviness inside me as a way to move through it and get my power back, it's absolutely incredible. So I want you to try it. I want you to try slithering. I'm going to answer some of your questions because you guys blew up my DMs and my comments when I posted that video. How long have you been practicing the slither, and why did you start? Well, I've been practicing for 6 weeks, and I started because my therapist recommended it as a way to feel empowered while I was facing so many changes in my life that felt too big to bear. That even though life is overwhelming, you still have power inside you to move through the things that are scaring the hell out of you right now. And sometimes you don't have to muster up a ton of strength. Sometimes all you got to do is slither. Seriously. When would I use this technique? Well, you would use this technique, I think, any moment where it's just too much to bear. Like I kept saying to my therapist, intellectually, I know that I need to get up. Intellectually, I know that this kind of period from 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m., that it's going to get better with time. But physically, I can't push through it. And I'm starting to get scared of it. And so that's when she said, I think you need to lean into it. I think you need to take an embodied approach. And so I think anytime you feel that way, whether you're on the couch or maybe for you, it's not getting up in the morning, maybe you spend so much time at night kind of unwinding from the day that you have a really hard time getting from the couch to your bed. So maybe for you, it's like an end of the day transition from one place that you're sunk into your bedroom. Have I noticed a difference? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've noticed a huge difference because I now have another tool in my toolbox. I mean, I've been using the 5-second rule for 14 years to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself out of bed, force myself out of bed. This feels like something gentle and just powerful in its own way. And I love having two different things I can do. What if I have a dog who will jump all over me? It's actually great because the dog like is worried about you, because the dog can sense all that heaviness in you. And the dog also will probably bring some playful energy, which is probably going to make it easier and faster for you to stand up because their energy will transfer to you. What if my bed is high up, or I have a wood floor, or I sleep and I don't have the mobility to fall out of bed? That's a great question. If you have a high bed, roll the foot out first, and then you can kind of like slide down, you know, like that, and do that. I think if you sleep on the floor, maybe just roll around on the floor, right? So if you're, you know, on a futon on the floor, or you sleep on a thermarest or whatever, just roll off the thermarest or roll away from where you are so that you get kind of moving. That's probably a great way to start. And so whatever the slither or the slide or the embodiment of moving through the heaviness means to you, that's what you want to do. Let's see. Can you teach this technique to your kids? Yes, absolutely. I think it's great for kids, actually, because you're honoring how they feel. You're not trying to correct them or coerce them. You're actually creating a deeper connection with them because you're honoring that they don't want to get out of bed. And so oh, it's a morning and you're going to slither, you're going to slide out of bed so you can have fun with it. What if you have a hard time feeling stuff in your body? I actually think this would help. Maybe it's hard to get out of bed because you are disconnected from your body. Like, I was surprised, I was kind of scared to try this because if I already felt so scared in my body, this is going to sound weird, but if I already felt so scared in my body, hiding under the covers gave me a false sense of safety, right? I'm hiding from the world, even though I hate the feelings of my body. So there was something scary about, like, allowing myself to slither out of that safe cocoon where I'm hiding from the world into the floor where you're open and all this stuff. And so I get that. But I've been empowered by how quickly that heaviness that pinned me to the bed leaves as I roll and move and start crawling and walking. And, you know, the more you do it, the more you'll notice the faster you go from, like, crawling to actually standing up. I'm going to do it the questions. Oh, we've got one more. Can I use somatic therapy in other areas of my life? Absolutely. Like, somatic therapy, I believe, is just using your body as a way to move through things, whether it's meditation or it's deep breathing, or I would imagine that the cold exposure therapy and the ice baths that I do are a form of somatic therapy, yoga, regardless of what form you practice, Tai Chi, even going outside, hiking, spending time in nature, deeper breathing. Those are all forms of somatic therapy that we all need to integrate more into our day-to-day life. Here's the deal. I'm going to prove to you folks today that the secret to everything, the secret to believing in yourself when you don't know how to believe in yourself, it's just 5 seconds. I'm going to prove to you that there's a 5-second window that nobody talks about, and I'm so thrilled I get to share it with you because once you see it, you'll never unsee it. And this is the only thing that is holding you back from getting everything you've ever wanted. And that is that there is a 5-second window that defines your life. There's a 5-second window, I'm going to prove it to you today, between a moment when you feel confident and your self-doubt talking you out of it. A moment when you feel inspired to share what you're up to give somebody a sample, and fear stopping you. There's a 5-second window between feeling motivated and your excuses stopping you. And there is a 5-second window between feeling courageous, feeling like, okay, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm going to go talk to that person over there, and boom, 5 seconds later, fear has stopped you. And we're going to talk about this word courage, because you're going to need it. And I don't know about you, but when I hear the word courage, you know what I think about? I think about the big stuff. I think about life or death. I think about my heroes. But I want you to consider something. To reach your God-given potential,
to tap into the magic and joy and all the opportunity and success that you deserve and that your family deserves, it's going to require courage. Because courage, by definition, is just the ability to do something that feels scary or difficult or new or uncertain. That's what courage is. It's the little things. And it's the little 5-second changes. I'm going to prove to you today. It's the secret to this business. It's the secret to your marriage. It's the secret to everything. And in order to tell you the story of my secret weapon, I call it the 5-second rule, not the one we grew up with. You know, if you drop food on the floor, you pick it up, you blow the dog hair off, you're good to go. This is something I created during probably the worst moment of my life. And in order to tell you the story about it and how you're going to use it, I got to take you back 10 years to a moment in my life where, my God, every time the alarm went off, this is what I felt like doing to it. You ever feel like that? The alarm goes off, you're like, yeah, not today. Not today. I do not want to do this today. And, you know, the interesting thing is that you can know what you need to do. How many of you know what you need to do to grow this business? Yeah, is that going to make you do it? Of course not. How many of you know what you need to do to be healthier? Is that going to make you do it? I don't think so. You got to know how. How do you make yourself do the stuff after you've worked a full-time job and you've come home and you're tired and you got 4 kids to take care of and you got to be a wife or a husband, you got a million other things to deal with. How do you make yourself do the stuff when you don't feel like it? And here's another truth, everybody. There's always going to be an excuse not to. Always an excuse not to make that call. Always an excuse not to send that email. Always an excuse not to walk up to that person and tell them all about total life changes. Always, always, always. And I had every excuse in the book. You see, 10 years ago, I had lost my job. I was unemployed. My husband had opened a pizza restaurant with our life savings, and that puppy was going under. We were about to lose our home. We had already lost our life savings. The liens had hit the house. The bankruptcy proceeding was a week away. And the financial stress, my God, it was taking us down the drain with it, along with our marriage, our sanity, our sobriety. This was 2008. Anybody else have a lousy year that year? You know, and we're not the only ones. It's not the world's craziest story. A lot of people in this room have faced those issues. But here's the thing. Isn't it easy to look at someone else's life and be like, oh, this is what you need to do? But when the change is happening to you, as personal, right? When the change is required of you, it's personal. And it's so much easier to do this. Oh, I don't deserve this, and this isn't fair, and this shouldn't be happening to me. And have you ever noticed that whenever you do that, you blame and you complain and you point the fingers and you come up with all these things? You ever noticed that there's always 3 fingers pointing right back at you? It's so irritating. It's a reminder that the power is in you. Now, I knew what to do. I knew I should get up. I knew I should look for a job. I knew I shouldn't be nice to my husband. I knew I shouldn't drink so much. I knew I shouldn't isolate myself, but that didn't make me do any of this stuff. I was so stuck. And, you know, if I hadn't discovered what I'm about to share with you folks, I know that our marriage wouldn't have made it. I know that we would have lost everything, our family, our home. I have no idea what I'd be doing for a living. I'm certain I'd be an alcoholic. But thank God one night everything changed. Now, it's a really stupid story, so brace yourself. Okay, you ready? Yeah, here's what happened. So I was sitting in our living room, and have you ever been so desperate that you give yourself a pep talk? You know, and you're like, okay, that's it. Tomorrow morning, it's the new you. You're going to get up and go to the gym. You're going to be nice to people. You're not going to drink so much. You're going to look for a job. And by God, Mel Robbins, when that alarm clock rings, you're not hitting the snooze button and lying there and thinking about your problems. You, my friend, are going to get out of bed. And then all of a sudden, I saw this blast across the television screen. And I thought, oh, that's the answer. That's the answer to getting up on time. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, instead of lying in bed and having anxiety and overwhelm and thinking about all my problems and hitting the snooze button, avoiding my life, I'm going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship. I'm going to move so fast that I beat anxiety. I beat every excuse in the book. Now look, it could have been the 4 Manhattans I had that gave me that idea, because I was drinking an awful lot back then. It sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? But for whatever reason, I'll never forget it. It was a Tuesday in February, 10 years ago. That alarm clock went off, that's what happened. I immediately remembered that dumb countdown idea, the idea of launching myself out of bed. And then this 5-second window of hesitation that I'm going to reveal to you opened up. And I started thinking about getting up. And I started thinking about all the reasons why I didn't want to. And I started thinking about, oh, it's not going to work and I don't feel like it. It's really cold. And I started reaching for the snooze button. And then I did something I had never done before. I started counting backwards, just like NASA does. To launch a rocket, I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And all of a sudden, for the first time in 6 months, I was up. I was like, 5, 4, 3, 2. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I went on with my day. The next morning, the alarm went off. That's what happened. I immediately remembered that countdown thing, and then I started thinking about what I needed to do. And all the excuses started to roll in, and I could feel myself hit the snooze button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm up again. Weird. The third morning, the alarm went off. That's what happened. I immediately remembered the countdown thing, and I could feel all the anxiety and overwhelm and frustration coming in, and this isn't going to work, and I don't care, and I don't want you, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm up again. Now, by that point, I was kind of weirded out. I was like, do I come from like a line of witches or something? I mean, is this like a spell? I thought, okay, let's test this little spell, and let's see if I can try this countdown thing in other situations where I don't feel like it, where I'm afraid, where my emotions take over. And so I walk into the kitchen, and my husband, Chris, is standing there staring in the fridge. And you know how that thing happens? Where you see somebody you love, and you want to kill them, you know? So my poor husband, Chris, is standing there, you know, looking for breakfast, and I walk in, and I see him, and I'm like... And, you know, here's the thing. I didn't want to kill him. I loved him. I was just so scared. And I didn't think we were going to get out of this mess. And isn't it true that it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be in action? It's so much easier to complain about the problems than to focus on building a solution. I'm not proud of the fact that I was triggered all the time, that I was nasty to him. And that's a nice word for it. But I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and something crazy happened. Like my body settled, and I was able to speak to the guy from a place of my values instead of snapping at him. I see the phone. It would obviously help if I call and I start looking for a job, but I don't know about you folks. I hate cold calling. I hate network. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm picking up the phone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm picking up the phone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm cold calling my way into interviews and trying to land a job. And then I see my sneakers, and I don't know about you folks, but I don't like to exercise. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm out the door. And slowly but surely, my whole life changed because I had this tool to push myself through the excuses that were stopping me and robbing me of my potential. Chris took it into the restaurant business. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're trying to renegotiate a lease with the landlord. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're going out and meeting with people with money and telling them the truth about what's going on. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly, one decision at a time, they pulled that restaurant business out of the wreckage. Now, I never intended to tell anybody about this. Because first of all, it sounds stupid. Oh, you want to change your life? Count to 5. Speech is over. I'm out, guys. See you later. The other thing is, I had no idea why it worked. I mean, why would something so simple work? Why would it work to help you get in shape? Why would it work to help change your business? Why would it work to help you land a job? Why would it work to help you not snap at your kids? Why would it work to help you calm your nerves? I had no idea. Well, that all changed. About 7 years ago, somebody asked me if I would come and give a talk about career change. Now, by this point, I had been using the 5-second rule for 3 years. I had changed my whole life using it. My marriage was back on track. I had the drinking under control. I'd cold called my way into a radio audition. I had a little Saturday morning show. That show took off and became syndicated. Next thing you know, I've won a big award. CNN is calling, and now I'm on TV as a legal analyst. Like, I can't believe this. Chris is opening a second restaurant. Our kids are doing okay. And so somebody says, hey, would you ever come give a talk, Mel, about career change? This was not a talk, by the way, about this 5-second thing. So this is the first time that I had ever given a speech in my entire life. If you would like to know what it looks like to have a 21-minute-long panic attack, I invite you to watch this thing. We're about a minute in here, ladies and gentlemen, and you notice I'm already getting that rash that you get on your neck when you start to get nervous. By minute 19, I have a full-blown panic attack on stage. Like, I completely forget where I am and what I'm supposed to say, and I look at the crowd of people and I go, oh, I know. There's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. You gotta move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. Thank you. And I leave. And my husband's backstage, and I said, Chris, that's like the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. Dear God, do not let me give a speech again. And then something crazy happened. A year later, somebody put this talk online. It now has 17 million views. That's not the crazy part. You want to hear the crazy part? The crazy part is people started to write to me. And by people, I mean strangers. And by strangers, I mean 250,000 of them from 91 countries. And those are just the people who emailed. And you know what they said? They all said, holy cow, Mel, I started using this 5-second thingy. And I'm on pace to double my business, and I'm able to be present with my kids. And my word, I started using this 5-second thingy, and I've got the courage to reach out to people that I admire, and wow, they're responding. Whoa, I brought this back to my sales team at work, and we're #1 in the region. Crystal's team, #1 in the country last year. Why? You're not selling anything if you're thinking about selling it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that's right, interrupts your habit of thinking about it and creates a habit of doing it, okay? Should you take it back to your teams and your friends? And of course you should. Should you teach it to your children?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, but proceed with caution because they will use it on you, you know what I'm saying? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mom, lower your tone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Dad, you said you were going to the gym. Now, one of the things that has blown my mind is that it's being used particularly in combination with other therapies, everybody, to help people manage addiction. We hear from somebody, we reach 1 million people online every single day on our social media platforms, and I hope to God that you follow us so we can stay in touch. And you should tape this and photograph this and use everything I'm saying to your advantage. So please, keep your phones out and do what you need to get what you need. You understand? You be selfish about our time together. And you know, the thing that's really blown my mind though, you know, people write to us every day. We hear from at least one person a day that says, when I think about sobriety as a 5-second decision that I make all day long, somehow shrinking it makes it feel more manageable. But I'll tell you, I never thought that something so simple would actually save lives. As of last week, we know of 76 people who have not committed suicide because they've used the 5-second rule to stop themselves. It's incredible. Incredible. This guy right here, everybody, his name is Steve Montgomery. And Steve is a veteran. And like way too many of our veterans, he has PTSD, and he wrote to us about this very moment. You see, he boarded a ferry overseas with the intention of ending it all, jumping overboard. And look, I don't know where you are in your life. I don't know if you're at the most amazing moment and you feel just fabulous, or if you're feeling pretty low. But I do know one thing. There is wisdom inside you. It's like an alarm that goes off all day long. It's the power that is in you. It is talking to you all the time. It is pushing you forward. It is calling for your greatness. And it doesn't leave you. It's a matter of whether or not you have the clarity to hear it and the courage to listen to it. So Steve's about to jump, and that alarm, that power that will help you make your dreams come true, that will change your life, that will allow you to believe in yourself when you start to think that you don't believe in yourself. It speaks to him and it says, you know, this is not the answer. Now he knows the 5-second rule. So he starts counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here's what I'm going to teach all of you. There's actually science behind this. It's amazing. What happens when you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, is you interrupt what we call habit loops. It's patterns of thinking, patterns of behavior that don't serve you. You interrupt those, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and by the time you get to 1, you've drawn your focus to your prefrontal cortex. Now that's a big word. Here's what it means. Your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your mind that you're using when you're in control of what you're thinking about, when you're acting with courage, when you're selling. Basically, the 5-second rule is a cheat code that allows you to
turn off the part of the brain that is sabotaging your success, that is doubting you, and to activate the part of your brain that gives you control to everything. Now, if you wanted the license plate, it's already gone in Arizona, and I have a couple disclaimers. The 5-second rule is a tool you're going to use to push yourself out of your comfort zone, to push yourself through your excuses. You're going to use it to make micro changes. You're going to use yourself to push forward. This is not to be used to sign a contract, okay? This is not to be used to get married. This is not to be used to make a gambling bet. And please, if you plan on putting this permanently on your body, think longer than 5 seconds before you slap something like that on your wrist. You know, you might consider a bracelet before you put something hideous on your leg. You know, that this just was 3 days ago we got this photo. And, you know, of all the photos we've received, and we've received thousands of tattoos, this is my favorite. And the reason why is this is your life. This is my life. You see, if you stop and think about it, the world's changing all the time. Right underneath your feet, right before your eyes. And you can't control that, neither can I. It's this infinite loop of amazing things that are happening to and around you. And some of it's going to be fabulous and mind-blowing and spectacular, and some of it's going to be heartbreaking and devastating. And none of us can change that fact. But when you understand a simple idea, that you just stop worrying about all that stuff that's going on around you, and you focus on your 5-second window of what you choose to think and do in response, and you control absolutely everything. And one of the coolest things about the 5-second rule, and I'm going to show you how to use it to build your business, to cure yourself of anxiety, to do all kinds of amazing things. But when you start to play around with this 5-second window and you realize, hey, you don't necessarily choose the stuff that's going to happen to you in your life, but you can always choose how you respond to it, you will never be knocked off your values, no matter what happens. So let's go back to you being selfish, okay? I want you to hold on to this idea of what do you want in your life? What are your dreams for you? And then I want you to bring it back to yourself. Think about that excuse that is stopping you, the one that you always reach for, like I was reaching for the snooze alarm. And I want you to think to yourself, what do you need to change? And it could be something good. Like I have this huge thing going on in my life right now. I have a brand new, you guys, I landed a daytime syndicated talk show. No kidding. September 16th. I hope you'll tune in 5 days a week. Watch out, Dr. Phil, because the Mel Robbins show is going to be airing nationwide. That's right. And when I think about all the changes I've made in the last 10 years, my God, I'm exhausted. And when I think about what it's going to take for me to be successful in this next stage of my life, right? That's right, I hear you. And to do 175 shows a year, and to be a lifeline for people every day, and what it's going to take for me and my habits. I got a lot I need to change. I need to be more deliberate about a lot of things. I got to be more present with my family when I'm around them. I got to make sure that I stay centered. And so I want you to think about, when you think about that next chapter that can start right now, what is it that you need to change for the good? That small little tweak. And I want you to hold on to that, because this is an easy question to answer. The real one is this one.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. Finally, you would dream where you are now. You would dream the dream of living the life that you are actually living today.
There is only one sensible thing to do with this empty existence, and that is fill it.
Live long and prosper.
let fear rule your life.
I'm trying to make somebody to look up to.
The most important word in that sentence is will. Not will you or won't you change, but do you have the will to push yourself to change? When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when somebody said something just nasty or racist or sexist to you and it brought you down, do you have the will to keep pushing forward? And the answer is, yep, you will, because you're going to have this puppy in your back pocket, okay? So let me explain how you use it. The next time you're in a situation where that alarm goes off, you kind of know what to do. You feel that little bit of confidence. You feel that hope. You feel that courage coming up. And then you feel that 5-second window of hesitation open up and those excuses roll in and you start to feel yourself shrinking. You start to feel yourself getting silent. You start to feel yourself backing away from that thing you know you need to do. You're going to pull out the 5-second rule and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and step forward. Now, a couple things about that. If you are with a group of people, do not count out loud, because you will sound like a weirdo. I do not want you in a meeting going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're like, oh my God, what is happening over there? A couple other things. Don't count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work. The reason why 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't work is because you and I were taught to count up in whatever language we were taught to count it in since we were yay high. It's already a pattern that is stored right here that you can do on autopilot. You can do it without thinking. I want you to develop a new pattern when you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and you activate this puppy right here. Let me show you what's actually happening in your brain when you use forms of metacognition. Now, metacognition is just a fancy word that means brain trick. That's all. You have the ability to outsmart your own mind. You have the ability to use simple tricks to be able to control which part of the brain that you're using. So this guy right here is a simulation of a functional MRI when people are using forms of metacognition. That red part right there, it's the interior part of your brain. It's where all your habits are. It's where your emotions are stored. It's where every pattern that you know, from driving a car to doubting yourself, to feeling anxious, to worrying about what other people think, those patterns that are sabotaging you, right there in the red part. The green part, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's going to make you more money. That's going to make you happier. That's going to allow you to develop new skills. That's what you're using when you're in control of what you're doing. So let's count out loud backwards together, and let's see what happens when you use this. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. For those of you that felt pressure right there, don't worry, I'm not a hypnotist. That's just evidence, and you're going to feel that from time to time, that you're actually shifting gears in terms of which part of the mind that you're using. You know, when you first start using this, I think it's really obvious how you use it. You use it to do very irritating things, okay? You're going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to the gym. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to talk about total life changes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to put down the drink. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to lower your voice. And look, you're probably going to hate me at times. I'm cool with that if you're changing your life for the better. I don't mind if you hate me. And I want to say something else about changing your life for the better. Do you realize I have been using the 5-second rule for 10 years. I use it every single morning to get out of bed. I hate getting out of bed. I use it every day to exercise. I hate exercising. I want you to understand something. There are going to be things that you need to do to heal your family, to build your business, to make more money that you may never like. That's okay. You can still do it. So I don't want you to expect that you're ever going to love having to make a cold call. You may always hate it, but you can still do it. I think about it like loading the dishwasher. I hate doing that too, but I still do it. Now I want to show you, given that I think the physical stuff is obvious, I want to show you two really important things. First of all, I'm going to show you a bunch of 5-second habits. These are habits that I have, that I do every single morning and every single night, and it is the reason why I am so successful.
And it is the reason why I can focus on what's important most of the time and not get caught up in the baloney, okay? And so most of you are gonna hate these. I want you to try them anyway. And so these are my 5-second habits that I want you all to adopt. And I promise you, if you adopt these, play around with them, you will make more money. You will make more money in less time. You will feel less anxiety. You will be less distracted, and I promise you, you're gonna hate every one of them. You ready? Here we go. So the first one is about your phone. I wanna put something into perspective for you. We live in what I call the attention economy, okay? That means your attention is for sale. Whenever you're on Facebook, whenever you're on social media, and you're just kind of wasting time scrolling, if you click on something, you just made somebody money. They just bought your attention. And so one of the things I want to shift your perspective about is it's become more important than ever that you realize that your phone is perhaps the most important tool in your business, right? You got that? For those of you that don't have enough time, the reason why you don't has to do with how much time you waste on this. And so, yeah, I know, I don't like what she's talking about. I don't like this at all. It's true. If you want to, I want you to wake up and realize how often you're really using this to further your business and your goals. Or when you're the one that's making other people money because you're spending all your time clicking on a bunch of crap that doesn't matter. All right? So, one of the #1 rules that I have that I want you to adopt, and it takes 5 seconds. I don't want you to ever have your phone in your bedroom. What? What? How dare you? Excuse me? I do not want your phone in your bedroom, and there's a couple reasons why. #1, you're addicted to it. Okay? #2, this is sickening. You ready? 33% of you are checking email in the middle of the night. Look, I'm 50 years old. I get up at 2:13 every morning, and I got to go to the bathroom, and it's nice to have a flashlight, but if you got it, then you're going to look at it. This is sick. And most of you don't even realize that you're doing it, and then you wonder, I'm getting sleep, I can't sleep. You want to know the other thing that's sick? 87% of you check it before you brush your teeth. You want to know why you wake up anxious and out of control and you got no time and you're freaked out? It's because you look at this thing before you even get out of bed. I mean, think about it. You're like sleeping. If it's next to you and the alarm goes off, what are you going to do? Oh my God. That's what's going on today in the news? Oh my God, what's happened? That person's on vacation again, I hate them. And you wake up and you're like totally freaked out and upset and now you don't know why you don't know, and that's why your day starts. Is it any wonder if that's how your day starts, why you don't have time? Why your mind is already out of your control? You have to put this out of your bedroom, and here's why. I don't trust you, and you shouldn't trust you either with it. Now here's the second rule. So it's not in your bedroom, so the alarm goes off. I don't want you to hit the snooze button. Now here's why. The reason why has to do with the way your brain works. Your productivity and your focus has nothing to do with when you get up. It has everything to do with how you get up. So if you and I, we sleep in sleep cycles. So you fall asleep, it takes, a little while, and then you drift into a sleep cycle, and a sleep cycle is about 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then your brain goes into a phase where it starts to thaw like a giant chicken, to come awake. And when the alarm goes off, great, get up, you're in the thaw zone. Your brain is ready to start the day. If you hit the snooze button, like I used to hit the snooze button, And then you drift back to sleep. What do you suppose your mind drifts into? Sleep cycle. How long do those take? 75 to 90 minutes. So when that alarm goes off 15 minutes later and you wake up, your brain is now trapped in a sleep cycle. Sleep researchers, psychologists, neurologists, they call it sleep inertia. If your brain is in a sleep cycle, it impairs your ability to process, to focus, to remember for 4 hours. So those of you that keep hitting the snooze button and then you spend the day going, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Whoa, I feel so groggy. It has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It has to do with the fact that you screwed yourself over. You basically put yourself back in a sleep cycle and then made yourself wake up, and now you're walking around like the Walking Dead for 4 hours. So no snooze button. Not because it's enjoyable, but because that's what your brain needs, and that's what your business needs. And that's what you need in order to focus. Now, what do I want you to do? I want you to do something called 30 before 7:30. That means take 30 minutes. If you can't find 30 minutes, take 5. What do you not see in this photo? Her phone. That's right. What are you doing during this time? So the alarm went off, the phone wasn't there, so you didn't look at it. You had to get out of bed because you didn't hit the snooze button. You now find 5 to 30 minutes. I started calling this 30 before 7:30 because my first kid got on the bus at 7 o'clock, so that was the first 30 minutes that I could find in the day where things weren't crazy, you know what I'm saying? And so this is what mine looks like. No makeup, pajamas, and no phone. Now, what are you doing in those 5 to 30 minutes? You haven't looked at your phone yet, so you haven't let the craziness of the world into your mind. You have not been hijacked by the attention economy. You've woken up and your brain is ready to go. All I want you to do is I want you to just think about your day. Just think about your day. And here's something that I stole from the folks at Harvard Business School that has changed how I do my day. And that is, all I want you to do is figure out today what is one thing that I want to work on and one way that I can make progress. That's it. So you're going to wake up, not have your phone. You're going to sit down with a cup of coffee or tea, a glass of water, or whatever. You're going to find 5 to 30 minutes before you turn on the TV or turn on the radio or look at the social media. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the one thing I want to work on today? And what's one little puny thing that I can do to inch that thing forward? Can I send an email? Can I watch a video? Can I go through my social media and unfollow people that trigger me? Can I, can I make a phone call? Can I read some of the latest training from Total Life Changes? Yeah, what can I do? What's one thing? That's all I want you to do every day, because if you just did one thing every day to inch this business forward for you, you would be shocked where you are a year from now. And I'm going to tell you, it begins and ends with you giving yourself the key time before the day starts. Don't your dreams deserve 30 lousy minutes? Doesn't your mental health deserve 30 lousy minutes? And you're not going to get it the rest of the day. You're just not. And so this has really changed my life. And so what do I do? The last thing I do at the end of the day, I charge my phone in the kitchen at night. That's what I do. That's what I do with our kids' phones too. They stay in the kitchen or in the closet somewhere away. That's the last thing I do so that when I go into my bedroom, it's not there. I'm not even tempted. Those are 5-second habits that will fundamentally change your mindset. It'll change your sense of control. It will give you the little momentum every morning. And every single one of you can 5 minutes in the morning. Every single one of you can charge the phone in the kitchen. And by the way, if you want to see a video where I explain this for free, I'm not selling you anything. We just get a lot of questions about this. You can just go to melrobbins.com/free gift. It's a video explaining the science of all of this in even greater depth. And that's my thank you to you for inviting me here. So if this makes you nervous, good. That's right, good. Because you know what? Nerves are normal. Nerves are important. If you're not doing something once a week that makes you nervous,
You should be. Because it means you're not doing anything new, you know? This is part of changing. And so now that I've given you the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know how to push yourself, you know how to coach yourself, you know how to beat all the excuses, you know how to close the gap between thinking and doing, you know how to close the gap between doubting yourself and acting with confidence, you know how to close the gap between fear stopping you and being a little courageous. Now I want to give you a couple really cool tricks around dealing with nerves. Because now that you're going to push yourself, you're going to find yourself in situations that make you nervous. Awesome. I want you nervous at least once a week. I want you out on the edge. I want you feeling like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? Well, we're gonna push you to do it. And so it's a medical fact that there's no difference in your body medically when you're in a situation that makes you nervous and a situation that makes you excited. No difference. Like, think about it. In a moment where you're really excited, your stomach has butterflies, right? Same thing's true when you're nervous. In a moment when you're really excited, your armpits, they sweat like Niagara Falls, right? Same thing when you're nervous. Your heart races, your throat gets tight, your hands get clammy. Medical fact. There is no difference between a situation that makes you nervous. I mean, is she nervous? Or is she excited? Whatever you're thinking, you're right, by the way. Because the only thing that's different between a situation that's supposedly making you nervous and excited is what your brain is saying about it. So the folks at Harvard Medical School wondered, geez, I wonder, since it's a medical fact that your body is exactly the same when you're nervous as when you're excited, could we trick your brain into thinking you're excited in a moment when you're nervous? The answer is yes, you certainly can. So let me show you the really awesome little trick, because they tested this at Harvard Medical School, and it was fascinating. Every single student who was taught to do what I'm about to teach you before a standardized test performed better. Before a track meet, ran faster. Before a negotiation competition, did better. Here's the simple trick. The next time you're in a situation that makes you nervous, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to go, I am so excited to fire this person. No bad joke? Okay, well, that situation makes me nervous. Makes me very nervous. I'm so excited to give this presentation. I'm so excited to give this sample out. I am so excited. And something crazy is going to happen. Your body is going to settle. And you are going to perform better even though you feel nervous. And you're going to be shocked, just like Chris was shocked. I used the 5-second rule before a presentation. I used nervous energy to be excited. It worked. Here's the reason why it works. If you're in a situation that makes you nervous and you allow your thoughts to spiral, your own thoughts make your body state worse. When your body state starts to get even more agitated, cortisol, a stress hormone, hits your brain. When cortisol hits your prefrontal cortex, guess what happens? You can't remember what you prepared. You can't process as quickly. So it's not that your preparation in talking to people about this business wasn't good. It's that you allowed your own nerves to release cortisol, and that stopped you from leveraging what you know. It's absolutely amazing, and you need to know this because you're now going to be in situations, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that really, really, really make you nervous, and that's good. Now you know all you have to do is be like, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, and you will be startled by how well it works. Now I want to build on that and talk about anxiety, okay? And if you have children that struggle with anxiety, first of all, you're not alone. And secondly, I want you to pay attention because the 5-second rule is a remarkable tool that you can use to help your children with anxiety. Now, we've seen a rise in anxiety with our own kids. I was speaking for a massive audience of pediatricians, and a pediatrician came up to me a couple weeks ago after a speech and said, I'm so glad you're talking about this because, you know, a couple years ago, Mel, we would have 3 or 4 appointments a week where parents would raise anxiety as like an issue. I have 5 or 6 appointments a day where it's the primary thing they're coming in with. And I'm sure if you've seen a rise in your own family and you're worried about it, you know, I want you to know that you're not alone. The other reason why I talk about this is because when I talk about anxiety, it's personal. You know, a lot of people will look at me, particularly on stage or in the videos we put out online, and they're like, oh, Mel, whatever. She was just born confident and annoying. Annoying for sure, just ask my baby brother, Derek. Confident? No way. I think if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I was the kind of kid that, like, my face would turn bright red when I got called on in class. And when I was in 6th grade, growing up in Western Michigan, my parents, they sent me to Girl Scout camp in Pentwater. I was so homesick, they sent me home. I mean, do you know how homesick you need to be for trained adults to be like, you need to leave? This is out of hand. By the time I was 19, it was panic attacks. By the time I was 21, it was full-blown anxiety disorder. And thank God a doctor put me on Zoloft. You know, I took that drug for 25 years. And I had no shame in that. I mean, it was a lifesaver for me. In fact, the only time I stopped taking it was when our now 20-year-old daughter was born. And I had such severe postpartum depression, like the really scary kind. I couldn't be left alone with our daughter for 8 weeks. So when I talk about how you and I torture ourselves with how we think, I have lived this nightmare. Now, about 5 years ago, as the 5-second rule started to spread around the world, and I was like overwhelmed with the stories coming in, something happens to you when you put something out in the world and it helps people change their lives. I know you feel that in your own business as a life changer, right? Like you feel like so humbled, and you also feel a sense of responsibility, don't you? I felt a sense of responsibility to not only be able to explain why does something so simple work and help people, but I also felt a responsibility to take a look in the mirror and deal with my own demons. And so I thought, you know, I wonder if you could use the 5-second rule to do things other than physical habits. I wonder if you could change mental habits. I wonder if you could change your mindset. I wonder if I could cure myself of anxiety. And the answer is, yep, you sure can. In fact, I've been off meds for 5 years. I haven't had a panic attack, a bout of anxiety. I don't even worry about anything. So it's amazing. It is liberating. When you embrace the idea, everybody, I want to tell you something. I don't know who trained you to talk the way that you talk to yourself. I don't know who trained you to think you're not worthy, or you're not good enough, or you're not likable. You're not to blame for that. But you have a responsibility to change how you talk to yourself. And I'm going to show you how you do that using science. Are you ready? It's amazing. And I'm going to use an example that many of you may be able to relate to, and that's the fear of flying. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the research you just learned from Harvard Medical School about reframing nerves into excitement. Because remember, nerves and excitement, the same thing. And the danger of allowing yourself to stay worried is that you agitate your body further. Believe it or not, there's a really tight connection between worry and anxiety. Worry is your thoughts being negative. Anxiety is when your thoughts get so negative your body starts to get worried. Okay? That's like the little sister and the big sister. A panic attack is when your body becomes so agitated that it's like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die, and it takes over. It's like the mother, okay? So I'm going to use this example to break apart how we think and to show you how to use the I'm excited trick from Harvard Medical School along with something that we call an anchor thought that will anchor your thoughts down and retrain your brain. So the fear of flying. I used to be a real nervous flyer, meaning I was a real weirdo. I would get to the airport, like I'm going to go to the airport tonight for my flight at 6:30, and I would get to the gate, and I'd be looking around at the gate area, and I had this whole thing where I wanted to see 3 kinds of passengers, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see a baby. We got a baby. Yes. I want to see someone in a wheelchair. Awesome. And I'd like to see men and women in the service. Because if those folks are getting on my plane, I could say, all right, God's not going to let this plane go down if they're on it, so it's safe to board, you know what I mean? And then I would get to the seat, and I would click that buckle, and the nerves would kick in, and the stomach would be in knots, and the armpits would be sweating like Niagara Falls, and my hands would get clammy, and start drinking water. And if you were next to me as I started my breathing, you would literally be like, why me? Why me next to this freak? And so I would try to keep it together as the plane is taxiing. And then the plane would take off, and as it takes off, it's like, okay, it's going up, it's going up. And then you know how the plane takes off and then it levels off and it goes from like, and it feels like it's about to fall out of the sky? At that point, all bets are off. I start having a panic attack. I've grabbed you. I'm hyperventilating. I pull out my phone and I text Chris and our 3 children, Mommy loves you. Heart emoji, heart emoji. Because if this plane is about to crash, I want my kids to know I tried to be the best mother that I could. And that way at my funeral, when they deliver my eulogy, they can put those text messages in the PowerPoint, you know, and they can show you. And you giggle because we're sick. We're sick human beings. If I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast the garbage you say to yourself, you wouldn't be here with us in Dallas. You'd be in an institution. But you listen to it. You listen to it. You listen to it. Oh my God. Why do you listen to this? It's insane. You get an email from your boss. You're like, I'm fired. You know, you get an email from somebody in corporate. What did I do? You have to stop it. It is a habit. It's a pattern. That's all it is. And you can break it. And you can replace it. And if you use the 5-second rule for nothing else, please go to war against how you talk to yourself. It will not make you more money to keep saying this crap to yourself. You are worthy. You do deserve it. You are smart enough. You work hard. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of success. Period. End of story. Yes, you are. So here's how you do it. When I get on the plane, before I get on that plane, so before you go through your day, I know exactly what triggers me on the plane. It's when we hit turbulence. There's something about that metal tube bouncing around at 30,000 feet in the air that makes me a little nervous, you know what I mean? So I come up with an anchor thought. An anchor thought is any thought related to what you're about to do that excites you. So if you're nervous about sharing total life changes, come up with an anchor thought that makes you excited. Think about what you love about this stuff. Think about the fact that you're going to give people a gift. It's a free sample, for crying out loud. Think about the impact this has made on your life. That's your anchor thought. If you have kids that struggle with anxiety, go through their day and talk about everything that makes them nervous and help them come up with another thought that could make them excited about what's going to happen. So I always think, if I'm flying back to Boston, I always think about, okay, what am I excited to do when I get home? Well, I'm excited to walk in the front door because we have a crazy 14-year-old son that always has some kind of wacko greeting, and I love it. And so when I get on the plane tonight, and we fly back east, and we bounce around over the rainstorms that hit the plains today, and my mind goes, oh my God, oh my God. Ooh. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. I am interrupting that thought. I am yanking my thoughts forward to here, and I am dropping in an anchor thought. I am so excited to walk in the front door and see what he does tonight. Right? And so what happens? Nothing. It's amazing. What happens is I yank my thoughts to my prefrontal cortex, and because I'm now thinking about something that's related, my mind's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. She's not nervous about dying. She's excited to get home. That's it. So when you start to feel the butterflies coming, they're going to come. That's cool. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. I love that. Yay, you. Grow. Do it. Then go, I'm so excited to make a difference. I'm so excited to have a team of people. I am so excited to change my own life. I am so excited to give this gift and share this sample. I am so excited to have this conversation and remove the garbage that is between me and my dad or my mom or my spouse or my kid. And that anchor thought will anchor you down. And what's amazing, we had somebody write to us, you guys. I'm so proud of this. We had somebody write to us 2 weeks ago that follows us online, learned this by just watching some videos that we put out, and she said her 6-year-old was so overwhelmed with anxiety, she was getting physically ill before school, throwing up. That anxious, working herself into a tizzy. And she started using this simple formula I've just given to you. Go through your day. She's like, well, what are you worried about in the first period? What are you worried about in the second period? Okay, well, what can we think about that would be exciting? And what could you think about if you have to go to the nurse? And what could you... Do you know in 2 days, 2 days, using just the 5-second rule, I'm excited, and anchor thoughts, this little girl is no longer getting sick, and in fact was bounding out of the car going, I am so excited, this stuff works, but it doesn't work if you don't use it. So if you don't think you have anxiety, I think you're wrong. I think we all do. I love this email from Mohammed. Thank you, Mel. I had an important email to send, but I was afraid. How many of us have an email or a phone call, right? We're thinking about it. We're afraid. Why are we afraid? Because we're uncertain. That's all that triggers us. We're uncertain about how it's going to go. Do you know that thinking about it doesn't create certainty? The only thing that will give you certainty is you taking control in that 5-second window, changing how you think, and taking control of what you do in response. And I'm telling you, the secret is just 5 seconds. That's it. You don't have to worry about the big stuff. You've got to worry about these 5-second windows. You've got to worry about whether or not you got the clarity and the courage to hear the alarm and the power and the genius that is inside of you. And, you know, you can get resigned. I was resigned. I didn't think, how on earth could simply getting my butt out of bed, how could that make a difference when our problems are so big? I'm telling you, you change your life one decision at a time. In fact, I think you're just one decision away from a totally different life. You're one decision away from not torturing yourself upstairs. It's the big stuff that you change with the littlest moments. Just ask Brittany and Todd. So today's Brittany's wedding day, and what you can't tell is it's been a terrible decade for the family because Brittany and Todd's mom got a divorce. And what are the rules of the divorce? Oh, you hate each other, and you fight like cats and dogs. You hire lawyers, and spend all your money, and you lose everything. And finally, the dust settles, and the divorce is final. And then what happens? Oh, everybody remarries, and it's like a big team sport of hate again. So, you know, he's walking his new wife up the aisle, and that alarm goes off. That alarm that's inside of you, that is trying to signal you to pay attention, that there's magic here, there's connection here, there's change here, there's power here. That alarm goes off, and it says, dude, you got to do something to heal this family. He sets his new wife down. He makes a 5-second decision. There were a million reasons not to do what he did. But he turned around, he walked back, he grabbed this man. That's a man he hates. That's Brittany's stepdad. Just look at the lady next to them, for crying out loud, you guys. And invited him to walk their daughter down the aisle. One decision changes everything. Just ask his family. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.